Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.
Hello to you guys. I hope that everybody is well. I hope that folks are doing their best work out there, being their best versions of self out there. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am Dr. Jefferson, and I'm appreciative for you being present for this episode. Excuse me. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a video in which Dr. Umar Johnson, who has been critically acclaimed for much of the information that he's put out there around the lesbian and the gay community, and some of his commentary around what it means for these people to have their preferences as far as like gender or sexual orientation and things like that, and the way that he refers to the condition of the Black community in relation to the LGBTQIA plus community as well. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to delve into the intricacies of understanding human behavior. And we're going to talk about his profession a little bit so that you guys can kind of get a really good idea of what I guess he's responsible for. Because the people who have asked me to do this video, oftentimes, you know, they're like, well, he's referencing that manual that you guys have, and you know, therapy is this and therapy is that. There are a lot of things that are incongruent with some of the statements that he's made, some of the reactions from people who identify as part of the LGBTQIA community. There are a lot of things that I'm going to go over the course of this discussion today, but I want you guys to kind of stay centered and grounded on what it is that drove you to this discussion. And I want you to give me all of your questions, all of your feedback, and that sort of stuff, so we can have a more collaborative conversation around this. So, the first thing that I'm gonna cover is his profession. So, I do have to say that I've not been a follower of Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't know a whole lot about his platform in general. So I have only reviewed the content that is relevant to this discussion. And I've only kind of reviewed that stuff in short because I reviewed what was sent to me. Okay. So you guys will review with me the same said content that we will respond to. And I'll just pop in and out so that it's playing, you know, at the same time for both of us. So we can kind of have that shared experience. So the first thing is his occupation. The question was asked, what is a psychologist? So what are they responsible for? What does a psychologist do? So as opposed to a psychotherapist, psychologists specialize in studying human behavior, essentially. Okay. So they study what drives people. They study what drives behaviors, human interactions, and things like that. Severe mental illness, the history, and what kind of shapes behaviors and responses to various things that contribute to people with those particular behaviors that qualify for a diagnosis. So psychologists can sometimes be psychotherapists because I am a psychotherapist. I get the question all the time, like, what's the difference between the two of you? Some psychologists specialize in treating individuals that have the same issues that they study. Okay. And that can look a lot of ways. Apparently, I don't know whether or not he's a counseling psychologist because that would be the name that is assigned to him if he were. But those people are clinical psychologists. So they actually do render psychotherapeutic services where you're talking through and helping people heal by way of revealing the different layers that that help them to better understand their behaviors, underlying emotions that are motivating those behaviors, and their interactions with people in society or in their personal network of people. So this guy has had a lot of controversy surrounding some of the things that he said because he's provided a lot of direct insight and education for the Black community as a whole. And I think that he's been asked some questions that are pretty tough questions for people to answer from a professional lens when you have certain biases, right? And there are some statements that are made by Dr. Umar Johnson that definitely I disagree with as a professional in the field. As a psychotherapist, I personally use the DSM in my work, in my practices with the consumers that I work with and my clients. And it's an integral part of understanding not only your behaviors, but human behavior in and of itself. But so I'm going to go to this video really quickly and I'm going to share that with you guys. One moment. Kind of got a couple of things moving and shaking here. Okay. How do you share? All right. So this is what we're going to look at. I'm going to kind of operate over here so you guys are able to see it. Hold on a sec. The sound was not optimized, so hold on, I'm gonna reshare. You know, having all of these different things going is sometimes very, very difficult. Okay, so now there we go.
Psychology. What are some of the, I know you talk about reading, and what are some of the things to turn around the cycle?
Reading is important, but information does not replace psychosis. Black people are psychologically disturbed. You have to put us through a system of psychological restoration and rehabilitation, just like we was put through a system of psychological indoctrination and self-hatred. A process made the Negro. Not a classroom, but a process. It was school plus socialization. It was school plus dehumanization, not just schooling. You see that? So we have to be able to put ourselves through the same process. The problem is what? I can't force you to go through that. You're a grown man. How can I come to you and say, listen, you're about to do this for 365 days to get your mind back? I have no control over your life. Children, we can control them because they're under our responsibility. So I believe in what Frederick Douglass said, and that is it's better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. So for me, and what I've learned in all these years of being in the field of psychology and education, I'm more focused on the children than I am on the adults, because something about the brain is like a computer. You get you a laptop and that laptop get a virus in it. Even if you get that virus out, it never works the same.
Sorry, you guys. Why
aren't you the landlord? Yes, you. Why aren't you the landlord? Every day you go to and from work and you look up and you see apartment buildings, self-storage facilities, office buildings.
The human mind is no different. The black consciousness, once that Willie Lynch is there, once that white Jesus, once that white people look better than us, once that Africa is a monkey kingdom, once you put that in that mind, you can never be certain whether that virus is totally out or not. So for me, it's about taking the children who've never been processed and making them the African revolutionaries and freedom fighters that we need. And when we speak of revolutionary and freedom fighter, we're not speaking purely in the militaristic sense. When people hear that, they think, oh, you gun. No, intellectual freedom fighters, spiritual, political freedom fighter. We need economic freedom fighter. Forget the warfare. Sometimes the brothers are so quick, we got to fight. We do. But military conflict is the last stage of revolution. It's never the first. Because you got to have something to defend in order to fight for it.
I'm glad you brought up that point about violence. First thing for us is to fight, or want to fight.
Yep.
But we don't know. We got to know what you're fighting. Well, I think we got the fight created and designed in us, but we got to understand how to focus the fight.
Yes.
And a lot of times when we talk about, even in neighborhoods, and I don't want to try to sound like you know, in the hood of the street, the first thing you want to do is want to fight.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But like, one, you don't know the law. Learn the law. Learn rules. How does this structure work? This order work? And then you can put your energy in fight. You something to fight as opposed to I'm always going to fix. You know, I ain't wrong with being a protector or defendant of your environment, but the energy I feel like should go into something. You got to know. We fight against stuff we don't know we're fighting against. We don't know the rules. You get mad at a football game, and then you realize, oh, I didn't know that wasn't even a penalty. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't my bad. You know, and you threw stuff across the room already.
But you also got to know, to add to that, we have to be very clear as African people in America. Even with the mastery of the rules, they can be rewritten behind your back.
That's true.
And not only that, even if you didn't break any, they can still fabricate charges against you. I remember an FBI agent came to me in California a couple of years ago, and she said, I'm a former agent, allegedly former. And she said, you need to know that you're being watched already. Former FBI, she said, you've already been profiled. And so I'm asking her, I said, okay, sis, what do you recommend that I do to make sure I don't fall into the trap? She said, there's nothing you can do. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, even if you squeaky clean, they control the media. They can create and fabricate a crime that you never even committed and make everybody believe you guilty. She said, all you can do is just do your best to protect your life. But at the end of the day, they are so much in control of this society, so well resourced and equipped that although they would rather have something on you organically that is a honest criminal offense that you committed, they're not going to wait for it. If they need to get you now, they will make up a crime and put it on you. And they have the full benefit of the American media system to make it stick. So we got to recognize that when you do this work, just like all of our ancestors before us, nearly every one of them went to jail, nearly every one. You got to do this work understanding that a time may come when you will be put in jail for the rest of your life, Mamiya, Abu Jamal, so forth and so on, for something you never did. The biggest thing is April 18th, I'm hosting the 50-state Black Parent Training Tour in Mississippi. We're going to go to every state in 2020. So on April the 18th, Saturday, April the 18th, that will be the one time that every Black person in Mississippi, parent or not, you don't have to be a parent, can come and be trained in the art of protecting our children. There's going to be 12 hours intense paperwork. It'll be like nothing you've ever been through. It's the most important training a Black parent can receive raising Black children. And for Mississippi State, it'll be held in Ocean Spring, Mississippi, Saturday, April the 18th, from 8 to 8 p.m., 12 hours intense. And they can register on my website, drumarjohnson.com. But I would say that as we go into this third decade of the 21st century, this first year after our 400 years, we got to look at our 5 major problems: miseducation, economic castration, gentrification, police genocide, mass incarceration. And our priority should be those 5 areas. You're not going to save the Black community if you don't do something about the schools. Build your own. You're not going to save the Black community if you don't do anything about the pathological unemployment and joblessness and the lack of access to wealth. Create your own economy. You're not going to do nothing unless we do something about police genocide. And the solution to police genocide, although nobody wants to talk about it, is Black men are going to have to stand up and challenge them. I believe, and I hate to say it, but knowing our history, I believe the only thing that's going to bring an end to police genocide is a cataclysmic clash between Black men and police. And we don't have to win the clash. We don't have to lose it, but we don't have to win the clash. Sometimes you fight not to win, but to get your respect back. And white men have lost their respect of Black men in this society, and we have to get it back. So we're going to have to arm and organize ourselves to protect our women, children, and elders. Okay, gentrification, we got to stop selling our properties to white folks. We got to stop letting them push us out of our communities. Okay. and your mass incarceration. Well, the mass incarceration and the access to wealth go hand in hand. But you can stop mass incarceration just by giving black men access to employment and business opportunities so they don't have to break the law. Because the white man, if you notice, when he talks about mass incarceration, he never talks about employment. You never hear employment brought into the conversation. Even when you hear the NAACP or the Urban League or the Congressional Black Caucus talk about black on black crime, they approach it from the same narrative as white America. Lack of self-discipline, emotionally uncontrolled, defective DNA, ADHD. Let's talk about economics. Let's talk about the fact that in 1940, y'all decided to rename Irish white folks and rename Italians white and rename Jews white. And up until 1940, they were the gangbangers. They were the ones breaking the law. They were the ones selling the liquor, running the dope. They did exactly what the black man is doing. But nobody said they were born that way. So in 1940, when y'all decided to make them officially white members of your race, you gave the Irish the police departments in the black community. You gave the Italians the fire departments in the black community. And you gave the European Jews the civil service municipal jobs in America's major inner cities that they still own to this very day. They got a stimulus package. We're not going to get no stimulus package from white folks because they have one goal for black America, and that is extermination. And unfortunately, because of our own ignorance and need to be accepted and our infatuation with a black messiah complex, we let Barack Hussein Obama probably deal us the most vicious and devastating death blow to the life of black America by allowing him the free reign of not being questioned or held accountable by any black person or any black organization for 8
COVID's put life on pause for so long. So when my doctor says COVID-19 vaccines are safe, I can trust that. And
years. That's almost a decade. And we allowed a Negro in the White House to go without no accountability to black folks while he fought for every other so-called minority group. And so now with Obama out of office, he probably undid, with our help, because he didn't do it alone, Barack Obama probably undid at least 50 hard years of political, economic, and civil rights struggle for black folks. He undone that. He basically put us back to the 60s with our permission.
Because he did not
do anything of substance to empower black folks. There's something Obama did. 2 things he did that no other president ever did to black folks. Only the Negro is responsible. He homosexualized our children. No matter what you say about all the previous 43 presidents, none of them had a campaign to homosexualize, effeminize, and transgenderize black boys, to the point where they would go to the school district and say that you got to let boys go to the girl bathroom if they feel like girls, and you got to let girls go to the boys' bathroom if they feel like boys. Who would do that? Donald Trump reversed it. I'm glad he did, but I'm embarrassed because you have a white racist who had to step in reverse a pathologically sick law that a black president signed into action. So that's the one thing he did. He's the only president ever to push homosexuality and transgenderism on the black community the way that he did it. And the second thing that he did is when Barack Obama became president, we were the priority minority in America. You follow me? Right. Don't get me wrong. We caught hell, but you could not, no matter who you were, you had to take a position on black folks, pro or con, but you had to give your position. Now you don't even have to give a position because we allowed him to elevate the Latino and the homosexual and the female and the immigrant to a status that is now more important than black folks. So for example, this coming presidential election, black folks really think they're going to be a topic of discussion. But don't get me wrong, you're going to get a couple little conversations because they still want that little black vote they can get. But you are not the priority minority. You know who these people catering to? Immigrants, Latinos, homosexuals, and women. Black people are last. You used to be first. but you let that Negro push you back. And what bothers me the most about it now is most of us don't even recognize what we did, although our grandkids will suffer from it. And then secondary to that is Michelle Obama is running around selling that book. And I don't know if you heard, but they said the way her book is selling, if it doesn't slow down, it'll be the #1 book in American history, second only to the Bible in sales. Michelle Obama's book is on a trajectory to be the highest selling book in American history. Obama's is not even out yet. Now, when his come out, he might break the Bible. White Jesus, now you got black Jesus. But anyway, my point is, y'all making money off the fact that y'all were black and in the White House. Both of you are attorneys, Ivy League trained attorneys. Why isn't Michelle and Obama putting together some sort of a task force on mass incarceration? Why aren't they using some of that money to do something about miseducation? Why aren't they doing some of that? Why can't y'all put together, open up a black bank and fund young black students who want to open up a business instead of going into debt through the college system? My point is, you got 2 lawyers who turned their back on black people for 8 years and put everybody in front of us. He wouldn't even do anything against police genocide. Barack Obama could have ordered a U.S. Department of Justice investigation into the systematic killings of unarmed, defenseless blacks. He didn't even do that. And I think that's part of the reason why his Attorney General, Eric Holder, resigned. I don't know this to be a fact, but I find it very interesting that he resigned right around the time of all these mass killings. And I think it is because he felt that the president wasn't doing enough to protect black life. But my point is, you made mistakes in office. You're no longer in office, and I don't see you doing anything to correct those mistakes, which means you're not sorry. Donate to FDMG. Everybody.
Donate. Hey, and y'all know Cash App, so you can Cash App, and then you go to Facebook and do the same thing. Facebook messages do the same thing as Cash App.
Absolutely.
Google you, they can find that again. Right?
Yeah, on the website as well, drumarjohnson.com. And that's where you want to go to register for the April 18th Black Mississippi Know Your Rights National Black Training Tour. Make sure y'all in the building. April 18th. Looking forward to seeing all of Mississippi there.
Listen, don't be fooled by the fake Facebook pages either.
Yeah.
Go to the website.
Yeah, go to the website.
Go to the website.
Yeah.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us.
No problem.
On Facebook at Good Twin Bad Twin Unleashed, and also on Instagram at Good Twin Bad Twin Unleashed. Now don't forget to watch our YouTube page and make sure you like and share our videos. Also go to our Facebook page, check out our t-shirt line. We have several wonderful t-shirts there that helps us to continue to
Okay,
provide
so
footage.
basically, I'm going to transition to another video of Umar's where he's having this conversation with the LGBT community, and he's asked a specific question, and he's having some difficulty in answering that question or responding to the person that asked him that question during one of his shows. So give me just a second while I transition between these 2 videos, because these are the two videos that we'll be talking about. If you guys have responses to the questions that have already been posed, go ahead and type your answers in the chat. And for those of you who have not liked or shared this content already, go ahead and give me a big push right now and hit the like button, thumbs up, and share the content. Okay, so give me just a sec. Let me pull up this next video.
right, Dr. Umar, my name is Diane, resident here in Kansas City, and I am one of those ugly black feminists that you are not a fan of. So I appreciate you coming here to Kansas City, and I figure if I'm going to have something to say, I'm going to say it to your face. So I do appreciate you addressing my concerns regarding anti-LGBT rhetoric and anti-feminist rhetoric. So I appreciate you saying that up front. So my question is, the exact definition of hate speech is speech that offends, threatens, insults groups based on race, color, religion, natural origin, sexual orientation, disability, or other traits. That is the definition of hate speech. We can say all day long that we don't hate a particular type of person, but I want to know, how is that rhetoric any different than white folks that say that black people are thugs, are mentally not together, that we are unintelligent? How is it possible? How is that not different as a black man saying that black feminists are ugly, saying that queer people are, you said it earlier, I can see you on tape. How is that different than saying that gay people are molested, that we are pedophiles? How is that any different than white people? He has said that online, and I have the video. Yes, you have. No, you did say that online.
I was accused and derided, as some of you guys know, because of my position on sexual confusion in the African American community. And I understand we may have a few visitors tonight, and I don't mind, okay, of that community. And so I think it's important that I clarify my perspective on black homosexuality and lesbianism so that we're all crystal clear on where I stand. Yes, it is true, I do not support it. Yes, it is true, I do not condone it. But it is absolutely false if anyone says that Dr. Umar Johnson hates any of our brothers and sisters who practice a traditional lifestyle, a non-traditional form of marriage.
Right. So my question is, how is this anti-woman, anti-gay rhetoric any different than white folks who say that black people are dumb, that we're thugs? Homophobia is hate speech, and anti-womanness is hate speech.
Okay. May I respond?
You can.
All right. Now, first, we got to take the emotionalism out of it. We won't be able to dialogue. Okay? I'm going to respond, but for the sake of time, I'm going to answer everybody's question. And if you like, when I'm done, then you can have a private, respectful conversation. Okay? Now, okay, well, let me do this one. I'm going to go through, then we can come back to it if you want to have that conversation. Number one, and because I got ADHD, I didn't remember everything, but I think I could get to most of the highlights of what you said. First, you said homophobia.
Oh, you're going to tell me that it's a mental illness from an outdated DSM-3 that was abolished in 1973? Don't try it.
That's like history.
This is not the
DSM-5.
This is the DSM-5.
Oh, that we're mentally ill. Go ahead. Go ahead. I just want to hear you answer the question.
And I'm going to be respectful to you, okay? I didn't pick this up to talk about the fact that homosexuality was a mental illness in this book until 1974. But since you brought it up, I'll start with that. If you read the American Psychiatric Association position paper on the removal of homosexuality from this book as a mental illness, and I have it, it's available online, it clearly says that we did not change this classification because we had sufficient evidence to prove that people were born this way. So one of the questions that got to be dealt with from the Eurocentric mental health framework that we're dealing with this issue in, why was it removed? Now, having said that, I picked up the book to ask you on what page is the mental illness homophobia.
It's not a mental illness. It's a disease, just like racism is a disease.
Who defined homophobia as a disease? This is the authority of mental illness. Where is the diagnosis homophobia?
It's not a diagnosis. It's a state of being. It's a state of being.
Phobia.
It's a state
of being. A phobia is in this book.
Okay, so hate
and
speech against gay people.
Phobia is fear. Simple phobia, any type of claustrophobia, It's a fear. You said homophobia. I'm not afraid of nobody. I've been asked by homosexuals and lesbians to have conversations with them on their radio shows. I normally accept the invitation for respectful dialogue. I don't run from the opportunity if it's going to be respectful. Now, I stand by my position as a psychologist, as an educator, as a therapist for normally 20 years. And in 95% of the cases of gay and lesbians I personally know and met and worked with, most of them were victims of sexual abuse as children. I'm speaking not what some white person wrote in some research study. I'm telling you what I know. Amongst Black folk, it is a pathology born of childhood sexual victimization. Denial is at the root of all mental illness. It's easy to say I was born like this, so I don't have to deal with the pain that triggered it. Now, I never said that because you are gay, you want to prey on children sexually. Now, do you have a strong case of homosexuals and lesbians who prey on children? Look at the Roman Catholic Church. We don't have to debate whether or not folks who are sexually confused who may also prefer children. But am I going to wholesale indict the whole population and say because you're gay you want to molest children? I've never said that. I've never said that, and I never will say that. I'm very responsible with my words. Now, you drew a comparison that I wouldn't disagree with. You said, how is me disagreeing with homosexuality, how is that any different from the white man saying Black folks was dumb and stupid and this and that? You know what the difference is? No, that was lies about us. That could be proven. You're wrong. I don't denigrate or downgrade Black gays and lesbians. Why would I do that? Do you realize Black gay men have one of the highest suicide rates in America?
Because of speech like what you
No.
community.
If what you say is true,
silence.
listen,
Why
you're being emotional, my queen.
What about before he was even born? What about before he was even born?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, what about 100 years ago, 200 years ago?
What about it?
There's no argument.
I'm asking you, I mean, but you said him.
Exactly.
So what about what was going on before he was born?
He inherited it and he decided to continue the
How?
conversation.
My queen, stay with me. It is a political fact for anyone with common sense. It is a political fact for anyone with common sense. Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. Black Panther Party was destabilized in 1972. Homosexuality became normal in 1974. It is a political fact that homosexuality was declassified as an illness so it could be used to take over the Black civil rights struggle. LGBT is what they call the new Black. We know it's not Black, but they're using it to ignore the Black agenda in deference of the LGBT agenda. It is the only minority issue that matters in this country. Now, let me ask you a question, my queen. Since we're talking about freedom of speech and people's rights and looking out for those who are being oppressed and denied their opportunity, where the hell was the LGBT movement when Michael Brown was murdered? Where the hell Where we go? Y'all don't speak out against what goes wrong with Black folks. No, you don't.
In the Ferguson, I started organizations here, and maybe
You're talking about you. I'm talking about that movement.
Guess what? The three women that started Black Lives Matter, both Patrice and Alicia, are queer Black women, and they are making
talking
sure.
about individuals.
I am talking
I'm
about three
your population.
women. I am talking about three women that started this movement.
Out against white
Yes,
supremacy.
they do.
And the
Yes,
reason
they do.
LGBT does
You're
not, I'm not talking
incorrect.
about you as an individual,
I
but the
am- you
reason
are
why
incorrect.
the LGBT movement does not speak out against white supremacy is
You wanna
because they
bet?
are a part of it. Here's my number 4. And I love you. That's in love. That's in
One
love.
last thing.
Number 4. Who's my? She was.
Anybody look up our story? Anybody look up? I would say you have a fact. prove myself right, look up her story of the Black Lives Matter movement, and you will see that the 3 women that started that are feminists and true or queer, and they are not about the liberation of Black people, it's about the liberation of gay people and the liberation of
I want to deal with that. I want to deal with that real quick. Because that is my issue with their movement. Stay with me. Stay with me. Let me go back to my ancestor, Frederick Douglass. Then we gonna move on. Because one thing we got to do, y'all, I talk about this and y'all hear me talk about this. When we talk about the Black agenda, we have to stop taking time away from the Black agenda to feed other people's agendas. Like, I want to draw a parallel, respectfully. When Frederick Douglass was fighting for the right for Blacks to get the vote, Susan B. Anthony and other white feminists told Frederick Douglass that you should not let the Black man get the vote until the white woman get the vote. And Frederick Douglass said the struggle of a whole race ain't got a damn thing to do with your struggle against your man. No, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. You cannot equate the gay struggle with the Black struggle. That's our problem. Respectfully, they are not together. No, my sister, no. No. The LGBT movement is a movement for the right to practice a certain behavior. The struggle for Black folk is a struggle to be treated like a human being.
So that was a lot, right? So is there anybody in the audience that feels like these questions were overwhelming? I'm asking you too many questions and all that good stuff. I guess that's the first question. Here's the thing. Okay. So I have a guest that's coming on in a moment, and we're going to get to this. She's also a clinician. You guys are more than welcome to join the show for those of you who are in the audience and have deemed that, there is something that you would like to say in regard to this subject, or if you hear something that we are saying that you feel you want to elaborate on, or, object on, and you want to come on the show, you are more than welcome to do so. Let's say, share your experiences. I'm posting the link here for you to join. Also, I want you guys to go ahead and like and share the content, so that way those people that are interested in sharing their insights as we delve into this stuff, they have an opportunity to come in and give their commentary and things like that. So today we're talking about the controversy around Dr. Umar Johnson. And like I told you guys before, I don't really follow this guy, haven't really seen a lot of his content. However, I'll be clarifying a couple of things for you guys. So the first thing is, of course, what is a psychologist? Because like I said, a lot of you, the person that sent this to me sent me several links. They had done several different searches and things like that. Google is not a really reliable source of information in its full capacity. That's what I'm going to say. Now, Google Scholar can sometimes be a great source of information, but Google in general, no. I need you guys to stay away from the internet. Stop trying to self-diagnose yourself. There are certain things that clinicians have access to, and a shitload of education and resources that you don't. And of course, the know-how, right? So you're not a clinician, stay away from that. The problem that I have with Dr. Umar Johnson is that apparently his understanding of the way that this wonderful DSM works is a bit limited. And I'm going to talk about what the DSM is. First of all, it's not Eurocentric. It's universal to every culture, every land, every type of person. So the APA is a collection of individuals who are in that moment or in that space tethered to the constant research and evolution of human beings. Understanding human behavior is the key component. Some of those people who sit on the board of the APA and some of those people who are tethered to the APA when it comes to the scholars that do the research and everything, some of those people are Americans, some of them are not. You have a large amount of literary content that is considered over the course of years in order for us to use this manual to classify illnesses in people. Okay, the DSM is used in all countries, including Africa. I hear Dr. Umar Johnson mentioned several times in his speech, in that very long-winded one that he did on the first one, Black people were not going to get any stimuluses. The vast majority of people who received stimulus packages were Black people. They were. Why are you guys, as soon as you start to find incongruences in the messages that people give you and you're following them as a reliable source of information, but you recognize that the information is no longer reliable, I'm just sometimes curious as to why it is that you guys continue to follow the content anyway. That's my first question. Secondly, I'll get into what a psychologist does. A psychologist is a person who does a lot of in-depth research on human behavior and what motivates the underlying conditions that drive human behavior and the responses that are maladaptive to one society, situation, culture, and the various domains of life. That's pretty much what they do. Now, I did mention earlier in the video that sometimes you have clinical psychologists. Clinical psychologists, however, they step into the realms of treating by means of psychotherapy and sometimes assessing for the various disorders. So they sometimes conduct the psychiatric assessments and then render those reports. You know, there are a couple of us within the field of psychology that are functional psychotherapists. Some people treat individuals, some people specialize in treating families, couples, individuals, and all of that. Some can only treat couples, some can only treat families. So I am a systemic practitioner. I specialize in severe mental illnesses and personality disorder, couples, families, and individuals collectively or individually. That's my thing. And marriage and family therapists are people who are psychotherapists, and we do talk people through their processes, but also I come from the medical doctor realm. So I have a very comprehensive approach to conceptualizing the issues that people present with in their everyday struggle in life. And there are a couple of things that I'm going to definitely clear up because I'm a little offended as a person who definitely understands pathology, whether it's on the mental illness side, behavioral illness side, or physiological illness side. Sometimes people go through things that put them in great levels of distress, and as a result, they respond maladaptively. Maladaptively means that it's not, a good response for the situation or the context, right? So that, for example, if I were to just kind of give you guys an example, let's say we're at a birthday party for a 2-year-old and I'm a guest at that birthday party, and you guys bring out a cake, and the cake is a cake of Barney. Let's just do Barney, right? For an example, okay? And so I start to spiral. I just completely lose it. I become very irate, very irrational, I'm very hypersensitive. I start to scream and yell at everybody, target people, start beating on them and things like that. So that's I'm in clinical distress. Obviously, I was triggered by, maybe it was Barney, maybe the color of the cake, maybe the smells in the area or whatever, but something triggered me to be a less presentable and less appropriate version of myself given the situation that I am currently in. As a result of that, I can't function in my full capacity. Okay, not in the appropriate way, at least. All right. So you said, how is Black people, the majority of the people, receiving stimulus packages when we are around 10 to 13% of the population? Make it make sense. Sure thing. So one of the things that Umar mentioned over the course of his spiel was that Black people have no place in the world of sorts. People don't respect Black people. White people don't respect Black people. All of this. The government doesn't respect Black people. A lot of that. So Black people have a tendency to underreport their presence in the United States by way of not filling out the census. So you appear to be the 10 to 13% because the 10 to 13% of the reported population is based off of collected information from the census forms that go out to your house, and you act like you don't know they came for you, or whoever, who they came for. They didn't come for. It ain't nobody's business. That's the reason. So if you look at, however, the tax report, if we're looking at the financial reports, if we're looking at the labor statistics and that type of stuff, and we're doing a comparative analysis of those addresses filed on people's IRS tax returns, and we're looking at all of the abundance, I love it, of the non-filer reports that were taken advantage of during the coronavirus pandemic. If we're also looking at the wonderful abundance of information of the people who applied for PPP loans, do I need to go on? Is it clear to you now? Are you got a little clarity? Yeah. Hi, Susanna.
Hello.
So let's welcome Susanna, my lovely co-host.
Yes. Don't let me take the picture.
So we're answering this question, Susanna.
Oh, okay.
How was Black people, the majority of the people, receiving stimulus packages when we were around only 10% to 13% of the population?
Well, who said that?
Right.
I want to see the statistics.
Right. But so, I'm going to say this, okay? Everything that you find, I did mention at the onset of this show, the internet is not always a reliable source of information when you're Googling everything, because sometimes when you're Googling everything, your results are going to be a little bit skewed based off of what your phone is analyzing in your everyday conversations, because your phone is a listening device of sorts. That AI in there has a functional role. So it is what it is. But also the other component is this. The internet was not meant to give you certain types of information, because certain people in certain occupations went to school to get that same knowledge. So why would they pay $50,000 to $100,000 to acquire their degree credentials for somebody to go on Google and be able to Google reliable information for them to walk in that same said occupation? So I want you guys to make it make sense for me. I operate 100% solely off of pragmatics. So there is no emotionalism, as Dr. Umar Johnson mentioned during his video in confrontation with that young lady that he still didn't give a valid answer to. But, right, I'm here for it today. So so far I've talked about what a psychologist is for them. We're discussing the controversy around Dr. Umar Johnson.
Okay.
And some of the comments that he's made that are indicative of some very interesting things in the field of psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've given them kind of a really good layout of what the occupation of psychotherapists and psychologists are and what it
Okay.
The next one I'm going to get into is psychiatry. So psychiatry is typically responsible for medication management. I heard Dr. Umar mention that, white people are out for the demise of the Black community here and the removal of homosexuality from the DSM in the 70s was intended to demise the Black population. Tear it down.
Oh, no, it was intended to normalize it because they were realizing that white folks were homosexual also.
Exactly. Well, not only white people, but people.
Yeah. Well, they recognize white people also.
Well, I mean, more white people were in lesbian and gay relationships in abundance before Black people. I want to make sure that I clear that up because white people are the framework and the foundation for lesbian and gay relationships. So the argument is that the DSM is Eurocentric, and it isn't, simply because it's based off of a collection of data and papers and research of everybody. And do we look like we're white? Both of us are in the field of psychology. I'm a heavy contributor to research. And Susanna is an LCSW. So in our field of study as psychotherapists, we're considered to be at the highest esteems or highest qualified to do the type of work that we do. So understanding that wonderful DSM is a part of everything that we do every single day. So to speak to why diagnoses, because Umar's comment was specifically that that's the reason that homosexuality was removed from the DSM. He also spoke to the fact that there was no valid reason. There was no merit behind them removing homosexuality from the DSM. So I'm going to explain this little piece right here.
The piece, though, is just to remind everybody a psychiatrist is a doctor.
Exactly.
A medical doctor. It's specialty psychiatry.
Yeah, so psychiatry is, although I have an MD, I don't operate as a psychiatrist. However, I do have a prescribing authority because I was an epidemiologist as an MD, right? So essentially, psychiatrists, they go to school with us, they go to med school or whatever, but their specialty is, of course, psychiatrics. So they specialize in seeing people that struggle with mental health issues, behavioral health issues that lead to psychotropic medication management. So they understand the biological component to keeping people level while they balance themselves out and are able to navigate life in a more safe way as they go through the process of psychotherapy. Now, I mentioned that psychologists can sometimes be counseling psychologists. The same goes for psychiatrists. Some psychiatrists are also psychotherapists, but they do very limited services typically because their time, face-to-face time with the patient is very limited because as an MD, it's a little bit different. But the key component to remember is that for the vast majority of psychologists, they're out here in the United States anyway. Most of them are only sticking to psychometrics, doing psychological testing, and then confirmation of reports that confirm suspected diagnostic conditions, or doing rule outs, or what we call it when we have a condition that may meet several criteria in the DSM and we need to rule out that it's not this but that, and so it requires further testing in order to wind that thing down. Personally, I believe in neuropsych as my approach, so I would refer a person to a neurologist for a report before I would a psychologist, because I specialize in psychometrics as well. So it'd be a waste of time and services, and the insurance probably wouldn't pay anyway. But that's a whole nother technical component. Let's see. Say with a considerable amount of our people in prisons across the country. That's I mean, that goes to one of the questions for the show. What is the real issue in the Black community? So what do you mean? But so as I mentioned before, if you guys want to get a really good way of understanding or gauging how many Black people are in America, present in America, start looking at multiple sources. That's the best way to kind of find out where people who identify with the Black community, one way or the other, and you have to look at the biracial component and all that good stuff. But that's the best way if that's what you want to gauge the thing on. Gauge it on that. However, Umar is just simply wrong. That's just what it is. He made that statement prior to stimulus packages being released to people. His assumption was one that operates off of a fear of acceptance of people. And so that goes to vicarious trauma. That's what that is. And in his entire video, he's constantly conditioning people to obtain a mindset where Black people really feel like they're not included in the other people that are citizens of America. Just because the legal system responds to you in a certain way doesn't make your position or your existence less important than the next. That type of paranoia suffices for a diagnosis of a condition. So I have to caution people from listening to things like that and then making that thing their truth. Listen to what you want to listen to. You know, let people influence you in the way that they will influence you. Collect all information, take what you need and leave what you don't and you feel doesn't apply. However, you cannot take and say that you're not a whole person because this dude told you that the diagnostic statistical manual of mental disorders was written to defile Black people. That's just crazy.
And where did he get that information? Like, what does he have to prove that that is as he says it is? And this is sort of what happens for professionals who doesn't know how to do their job. What they do is they come up with information that really sounds good, that really looks good. They'll throw statistics, something in, and then that becomes their platform. And that gives people the impression that you kind of know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, you've been researching for years. No, you Google that too.
Right, and it's overgeneralization. Like you can't generalize the entire statistical manual of this mental disorders. You can't generalize that to only fit an agenda that Black people are going to, meet their demise. A couple of things stand out for me. Like I said, I didn't watch every single video. I shared with you guys the 2 videos in which that I'm basing this, conversation off of. And obviously my producer's not doing their job. So I'll put up these things. So let's talk about the DSM really quickly so I can make sure that people understand what the DSM actually is, okay? The DSM is the diagnostic classification system for us understanding how mental illness presents in people. Not white people. Not Black people. Not Asian people. Not European people. But people, human beings.
And it stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual.
Well, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Right.
You're in the wrong screen. Okay. But so, it's really important for you guys to understand that there is a lot of very reliable information printed in there. There are also contraindications to the assigned diagnoses in there as well, so that people do not end up misdiagnosed. However, it does happen in an abundance. It's happening now. And what I want to stress is that it is meant to convey that some people, struggle with distress on some level at every stage of their life. But in order for a thing to be a clinically significant diagnosis, they have to meet a certain amount of criteria in the diagnostic criteria listed. So I did a show on borderline personality for you guys yesterday. And I told you guys 9 different things that a person could meet in order to be diagnosed as with borderline personality disorder being the thing that is plaguing them, right? They don't have to meet all 9 criteria. They only have to meet 5 of the criteria. So 5 of those things, 5 of those indicators are sufficient for a clinician to conceptualize that this is the issue, as opposed to other issues. And then we have a whole separate section that guides and shapes our understanding of the presentation of the symptoms listed. So those are things that help us rule out conditions altogether. Culture, societal norms. These are areas that contraindicate the rendering of a diagnosis. And essentially what happens is, if over a length of time, a person, let me move to the right one. A person no longer meets the criteria because society has adapted in such a way that this is a normative criteria. Homosexuality. Social acceptance is a component. So when the vast majority of society now moves and thinks and feels and does in such a way that accepts and embraces this behavior as the norm criteria in that culture, it no longer qualifies as a condition. Okay. So in America and other countries where we see homosexual being a prevalent thing that people during that time, especially during the 70s, this is a very common thing that's happening among people. That's the reason that it came out of the DSM. So it's not because it was targeted at breaking up Black people or Black families. Black people do that to themselves every single day. No entity has to do that. No entity has to do that. One of the things that this lady that was a representative for people that are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, one of the things that she mentioned was commentary that Dr. Umar had made at some point, saying that he felt a certain way towards people who were homosexual. He never, ever at any point addressed this woman's concerns. Okay. Just because homosexuality is no longer in the DSM, he told her that there is no sufficient evidence backing why it was removed. We just discussed why there is sufficient evidence as to why it was removed. His thing was the Black community at no point has acknowledged or welcomed the LGBTQIA plus community. And when that happens, because the Black community is considered to be a separate entity all in of themselves, they're not a part of the rest of society for whatever reason. I don't understand. That's when homosexuality will no longer become a mental illness. That's so interesting to me. So gender dysphoria is still considered to be a mental illness. Okay? Gender dysphoria. So when we talk about people who are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, gender dysphoria applies to them in such a way. So gender dysphoria in the DSM is classified or broken down by way of age or whatever. And so I'm going to read to you guys a little bit about that. So you say Black women bashing a Black man who's helping the Black community. That's interesting. If you consider this to be Black bashing him, I'd be really curious as to what you consider to be helpful about his rhetoric around the fact that Black people are in a state of being where they need to reorganize and restructure their children to separate themselves from other people in society based on the way that they look in order for them to be in the fight in a different way. And this is an entire war. Like, help me understand. I think that in America, we put a lot of pressure on the fact that Trump incited violence at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
In as much as Trump's speeches were inappropriate, okay? If Trump incited riots, I'm pretty sure that Umar is inciting violence. And Umar is inciting discord. And Umar is vicariously traumatizing people that choose to follow him.
Yeah.
Period. People are people. Understand that. When I operate on a person and I cut them open, whether they're Black, white, Indian, Asian, whatever, on the inside of you, you all look the same. When organ transplants are done, okay? Organ transplants are done in such a way that a Black person and a white person and an Asian person and an African person, every single person can receive an organ from another person as long as they have the correct blood type. Blood type changes or classifies or characterizes or delineates people, not race. You're all the same. Your brain functions and grows in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing different about you than the next person that is of a different race. What he's doing is conditioning Black people to not understand who they are, to be even more lost in their identity than they already are. Black people, the Black community right now is more confused. They look like a case of borderline personality disorder. That's what the Black community looks like, because the identity of the community is lost, because there is no sense of culture.
Mm-hmm.
There is no sense of self. There is no comfort in taking and understanding who you are, because you're constantly being traumatized by even prenatal traumatization is happening because the emotions and the mindsets of the parents that are carrying these kids are extremely confused.
Mm-hmm.
As to who they are. That passes into the child's personality characteristics. As a result, you see children behaving and, interacting with people inappropriately because they operate out of a place of fear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of these women challenged him and said that he was homophobic. And his response was that, well, a phobia is an intense fear. Okay? And I don't fear anything. The way that you operate has a lot to do with what your fears are. Pervasive patterns of fear. And everybody, if you are a human being, you must have some level of fear. If you have no inhibitions, right, whatsoever, then you have no boundaries. And the thing about Umar and his rhetoric is this. You're conditioning and you're trying to push people into this agenda where they don't understand what proper boundaries are. They don't understand what's happening inside of them. And as a result, They're not evolving into the various states of being that they need to according to proper personality development. Okay.
And I think what he's also teaching them is what he's saying is the way to be. And what that does, it takes people away from being the person that they need to be if they really experience life how it is. He is actually really conditioning you to be a certain way, which is not healthy for you, the person, which is also not healthy, period. When we talk about vicarious traumatization, that's part of what we're talking about, not being healthy. So then you're having people who are believing in everything he says because that's how they're beginning to live their life. And things are not beginning to feel better for them because you are following a way of thinking that's really not in line with how you were going before you made that detour.
And so to go to the comment where someone mentioned that Africans were the first people. Africans come in every shade.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they were the first people, but they're also equally originally white, brown, black, every color.
Curly hair, straight hair.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what first people you consider to be on this earth. And the interesting thing to me, Black Americans find their way to identify in so many ways to African culture, but they have zero sense of representation and pride out in public that states that they're even halfway an equivalent to an African person. I don't know any African people, and I've been to Africa, been there, immersed, lived there for years. I don't know any of the African people in Africa that would walk out of the house willingly with the means and the provisions and everything that they need, that would walk out of the house willingly looking like these people do in this day in Black American culture and say that that's okay. I don't know any African kids, right, that are the age 19, 20, 21 even, 25 even, that would disrespect their parents. There are things that you guys love to identify. That's what I'm talking about. There is a loss of sense of self. You are not them, they are not you, and they don't want to be you. Trust me when I say that. So that's all I'll say about that. So you talk about him trying to create cash flow within the Black community. Guess what? The Black community thrived off of in the 1920s, before the 1920s, very much after slavery ended, really from like 1890s to 1920s or so. They thrived off of Black Wall Street, and they built from the ground up. So they had their own grocery stores, own interconnected system of viability, financially, banks, all of that good stuff. They had all of those things. So the reality is this Black American culture is not the same as African American culture. That's the reality. So if you're going to operate and you're going to teach and you're going to go out here and you're going to preach and you're going to go out here and push this narrative, Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm going to need for accountability to be something that you take. I'm going to need you to not refer to a diagnostic manual that's constantly ever evolving with people and humanity and call that a Eurocentric thing that's inundated, but still go back and refer to it when it fits your agenda. So make it make sense to me, sir. That's my thing. So we're going to talk about gender dysphoria and what that is. Gender dysphoria is still a thing, and gender dysphoria applies to people that are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. It talks about the perceived sense of self being in disalignment with what the physical appearance of self, as far as gender is considered, right? Those two components being incongruent.
Right.
Okay. Or a sense of not belonging to the assigned body or gender that physically presents. And as a result, having an intense desire to be treated like the gender that you feel like you are on the inside. Does any of this sound familiar? I'm going to need somebody to share this. I'm going to need somebody to like and share this video with people that are a part of the LGBTQIA community that you know personally. And I want them to come in and talk about their experiences, because guess what? These are their experiences that they report when they come to me for gender reassignment documentation. That's a process, but that's a diagnosis. It's an entire thing. Hello? So if he wanted to speak to the validity of a person's gender or the LGBTQIA plus community as it relates to the DSM, that's when he would have gotten it. Homosexuality was removed because homosexuality is a socially accepted behavior and practice and preference in society in which that particular time period, right, applied to the DSM. So we went from the DSM-2 to the DSM-3. So it is what it is. Hit the link, man. Money Boy Trey, come on. Let me hear what you got. But so I want to hear from you, Susanna. Tell me what you feel about the level of vicarious trauma that we're seeing in these people that are following Dr. Umar Johnson for advisement on our field of study. How does that impact you as a person that's still trying to adapt? Because what you have to understand is, as clinicians, we all present with our biases, and we remove our biases in order to move ourselves in a clinical role to be able to make proper judgments according to clinical implications when it comes to diagnosing people. So it's not about a personal agenda. It's not about our personal preferences or what our belief systems are. It's about making sure that that person leaves with a greater sense of empowerment after they have met with a professional and they understand exactly what is at bay when they're having these difficulties relating either inside or to their external environment. So let's talk about how you feel about what he's doing in his work with the Black community.
I mean, I think what you see is, or what I've experienced in my clients, and I have clients that they come in and talk about feeling lost. I hear stuff like, doesn't know if I'm coming or going. I'm not sure what to do. And when you talk about, like, what's your day like? They have a difficult time telling you what they've been doing all day. What is stuff feeling like for you? They have a difficult time explaining a feeling. Like, they don't even understand what a feeling is as opposed to a thought. You see people, little stuff like missing your appointment, being late. Those are all some of the symptoms that people present with. And I think what I think he believes he's trying to do is align the community in understanding how Black people think and what are the ways in which they should present themselves. And if you are in a stage where you're still kind of learning and trying to understand who you are as a person in this world, and then that's different to what he's saying, people get confused. They feel really confused. They feel out of touch. When I look at the violence that's going on in Atlanta, it's like, what are people thinking about in terms of other people's life? What is the value of other people's life? What is the value of their life? When you sit back and you look at this, it's like, how do you take somebody's life just out of the blue because you're angry, because you're mad? You've seen people who are not even able to identify being angry, being upset, being mad. They go from 0 to 100 and don't even recognize that process that's happening. And I think, in the Black community, the Black male is an important person for other males because he's supposed to represent a mentor of some kind. I mean, this is, I'm not an American born, but I've been here long enough to understand the culture. I have American born kids. So I try to understand what it means for Black men to grow up in this country. And I think for them, it's about the Black male is supposed to be able to teach the young Black man young Black boy how to be a man. So he's representing that to Black males. And when he shares stuff that does not fit, that is not truth, that doesn't sound okay, that has some racist tone attached to it. And yes, people don't believe it, but Black people can be racist. When he has those tones attached to it, you get somebody who's coming in a treatment going, I don't know what to do. I feel lost. And our role is to help them begin to think about how they can align themselves with what it is that they perceive they want to be. And then so that you get somebody who gets really angry and hurt somebody else because they just don't have skills on what to do. And when you have a Black male role model who is talking about money, and who's talking about you've got to be always hypervigilant about the white man, and maybe you do, but when you have somebody who's teaching you how to be like that, you are growing up in a state of fear. Not even recognizing you are afraid. And when something happens, you end up doing something that, had you thought about it, had you had someone to help you process how you're feeling and thinking, you would not have killed somebody. You would not have got into that fight. And I mentioned that because, I was watching the news and there's this young guy who went into the store and the lady told him he needed to wear a mask. And he said, fine. He left, went back out, came and shot her. It's interesting to know what that.
So
what that process was.
Right. And the reality is this. I think that people oftentimes engage in behaviors that are counterproductive to actually solving the issues, because we come from a culture. There is a component that needs to be acknowledged by the Black community. And that's the fact that there are inadequate coping mechanisms being taught to children as to how to resolve issues. And so, and they're not being directly taught, because a lot of Black people will tell me, well, I didn't teach them how to do that. I didn't do that. But your children are 100% tethered to the emotionality and emotional condition of the parents. Whether they see and, have interactions with them on an everyday basis or not. So there are, let me address the thing in the chat really quick. So for whoever this guy is, dude, type your name so I can address you appropriately. But let me make sure that I make myself very clear, okay? I am definitely not here for the games. And what I won't tolerate is BS. You are 100% open and, welcome to express your insights, whatever they are. On this particular show, you can express whatever you want to. However, because I believe in freedom of expression, I won't block you. You can say whatever you want. And to your sentiments about my wig, you don't like my wig? What, you got a problem with it? Would you like to wear it instead? I'm not sure what that really means. And my question is, what does that mean for you? What does my decision to wear my real hair or not have to do with you?
That's a distraction from the conversation.
Exactly.
We're not going to feed into that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I would be curious as to what that means for this person. Like, for you, what goes on in your mind as far as the validity of the message? I talk about that all the time when I talk about people who are attempting to discredit people that speak out against Kevin Samuels and things like that by calling them fat, disgusting. And the urban therapist, he talked about that on his show earlier today too. He said that when he went after Dr. Umar and he went after the, I think Kevin Samuels, the manosphere came for him and they were like, oh, well, you need to go to speech therapy and think, what does that have to do with the message being conveyed? Right? So it doesn't take away from the validity of the message being conveyed. Kevin Samuels being gay doesn't take away from the fact that he has some valid points, sometimes rendering insights to women. I talk about that all the time, but he needs to sometimes address his delivery when that delivery becomes something that is now dangerous to people that are in very, very sensitive states of their being due to an inadequate culture to help shape and cultivate a very secure sense of self in these people. So that's it. And that's all I'm going to say on that. And sir, if my real hair is something that really excites you and makes you feel a certain way. The pictures, if you're viewing me on YouTube, there are 2 pictures of me and they're both in my real hair. And it's a shitload of pictures on the internet too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay, let's get back to the topic at hand. I feel like there is apparently a fear of the world becoming something that I don't know, removes the validity of him as a person or as a man, or there is something there that makes this man move to the position of continuing to vicariously traumatize directly those people that are following him. And that's an issue for me, because if you start to do that based off of trying to condition something that has been peer reviewed over and over and over again and is used in several different countries and recognized and respected in those several different countries, because we understand the diseases that people have on a mental scale, the disorder that people have on a mental scale that are causing them clinically significant distress. I think that when you move to trying to normalize, right, or try to criminalize the use of this particular means to what's understanding and conveying what people are going through, you further stigmatize what it means for people in the Black community to go out and get the right help that they need to remove all of this trauma that is a part of the human condition in the Black community that incites the lack of productive means of dealing with issues, the lack of productive means of growing into your personality and becoming the best version of yourself. And so for me, Umar is a problem because you are the problem in the Black community. Like, you literally are. Like, you're a problem, period.
Unaware of how his behavior is inappropriate. It's dangerous. There is a level of sickness that he's selling to the community. And people who are feeling empty inside, people who have low self-esteem, people who feel like stuff is missing in their life, is going to grab some of that stuff because it sounds good. So if you don't know that what you're grabbing is stuff that is going to continuously eat at you rather than make you better, you don't know, because you feel inadequate yourself, you feel lost. And this is here's a man who's saying, take this. This is going to make you who you are.
Right.
You know? And I just think, and I don't know if, I'll just go there anyway, but I just remember the Jim Jones phenomena of how people buyed into this man to the point of where they were willing to risk their life for whatever he said, even when they recognized that something didn't feel right.
Exactly. So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of society are we if we're okaying people being less than productive and stepping into a place of understanding and accepting their own behaviors? That component kind of speaks to that piece that was highlighted about social comparison theory. And that's what Umar is using for him to manipulate people into a place of insecurity. Black people should not be comparing themselves to another race of people, because the first component is this: race doesn't exist for anybody but American people. That's the first component. And when you start to compare yourself and you start to compare your successes and your failures to that of other people, whether they are of your same race or not, or whatever it is that you want to classify and compare off of, you become a less valuable person at some point, because that person that you're going to run up in comparison to may outshine you. And then what? What happens to that secure sense of self and its becoming? Because now you don't have anything reliable. You can never compare yourself to other people because you're different and you're an individual for a reason. That's healthy for the fabric of your being.
Welcome to YouTube, Dr. Jefferson. I think this guy in the chat room is a perfect example of what you were talking about earlier when you were saying that men don't need to follow men that much. If he's trolling and having fun, one or two jokes, that's thing. But this guy's clearly one of those people that if you ain't rocking with Umar, he not trying to hear you.
Right. And we don't have to, feed into what he's doing because we don't need to give him the power. He's got whatever power he's got. We don't need to respond to his stuff to make him feel better.
Right.
We don't need to, because our concern is we have a psychologist who's making comments who actually have an advanced degree.
Right.
Which means he did some particular study for 4 years on a topic. He's exhausted that topic. And now he's presenting information that is potentially damaging to people, to the Black community.
Exactly.
I'm not a disguise that I'm a psychologist. I know what I'm talking about.
Well, they feel like Umar has 6 degrees, so he's the most educated man on the planet.
In his mind.
No, that's how these people feel.
Right. That's the part. That's
I
what
don't even think
projected.
Umar feels that he's that. Umar has his moments where he knows what's up, and then he has other moments where he's King Kong consciousness, his alter ego.
Here are my thoughts. After observing his interactions with the one lady, and he wasn't able to give her a viable answer as to why he commented in the way that he commented, as far as like his regard for the LGBTQIA plus community, the way that he approached that was completely unfair to her, because he jumped onto a speech that said that the Black community's issue basically is not the same as what the LGBTQIA plus community is. And that's a fallacy. If we look at what is assumed to be the Black community's issue, and we look at what actually is the LGBTQIA plus community's issue right now, it is about being recognized and accepted for who you are, and letting that be your rite of passage. I mentioned to you guys just a moment ago that gender dysphoria is currently a diagnosable mental disorder. Anybody who identifies with the LGBTQIA plus community has this disorder by default.
He's mentioned that several times, that it's a mental disorder, and that into the 70s it was classified as a mental disorder. So
that's not the same.
It wasn't?
No, it's not the same. Homosexuality and gender dysphoria are two different things. Homosexuality focuses on, when it was a diagnosable disorder, it was around the sexuality, the sexual practices of a person. It was not around the gender identification. And that's why I talked about in abundance the LGBTQIA plus community being off balance, because they're now including sexuality as a component to gender, and it's not. Those are two separate and distinctive identifications. So a person who identifies with a gender that is not their assigned gender at birth, right, qualifies for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria if that person in and of themselves now want to be treated as that other gender that they identify with. If they want to bound their breasts down, right, if they're a woman, if they want to tape their penis down, if they're a man, that is what gender dysphoria is. It has nothing to do with who they choose to have sex with. Gender and sex, sexual orientation are two different things. And the thing is, LGBTQIA community, I keep telling you, they're mixing these things up. Intersex, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. These are things that are intersecting that do not go together if we're going to say that we need to classify identity of gender and then identity of sexual orientation. There are two different things. He blamed Obama for making people homosexual. Who follows a person? I'm like, what is going on? Do you guys think that he's jealous of Obama?
Yeah, I think Umar is jealous of any black person that's more successful than him, to be honest. That's all he goes that are successful black people.
So do you guys think that? What do you think, Susanna?
Is he jealous of Obama?
Yeah, because he talked about Obama and Michelle's book coming out. Because when he made that video where he was talking about black people are not going to get any stimulus money and all that wonderful jazz, that was, back then they were talking. He was talking about the fact that Michelle Obama's book is going to be released soon, and people shouldn't support her. Her book is going to surpass the Bible and all this extra stuff. He talks about a lot of things that don't make sense, essentially.
And some of it might be that when that stuff happens, people are going to gravitate that way and gravitate away from him. Maybe that's some of his concern, that he's going to lose people. And that's how he identified himself. The more people that joins in with him, and when he pulls up his YouTube and he pulls up his other stuff and he said he sees 1.2 billion people, that makes him who he is. When it really doesn't. That's how he's identifying himself. When in fact he's a man who should be, because of the degree he has, able to provide appropriate, healthy knowledge for the black male community, if that's what he wants to do. That's not what he's doing. Because your life is not about money. Your life is not about books. When you are by yourself, when nobody's around, what do you do? How do you feel? What do people do and how do you feel? Is he alone when he's by himself? I'd be interested to know how he thinks about him when he's by himself and nobody's around. Because you have to deal with you no matter what. No matter what.
So I wanna address some of these questions. Casey asked the question, see, that's the problem, or post the comment. That's the problem. Women are supporting the gay community and the social construct is trying to demasculate.
Obama is the face of the gay community, legalized gay marriage. Gay marriages has been happening long before Obama, even before he was in office. Obama was a little boy.
Rush, what's wrong with the gay man? I'm totally not a LGBTQ supporter, but I don't give a damn about them getting married. So what's wrong with them marrying each other, having the same opportunity to marry as every other human does?
If you have conversation with people who opposes the gay community, the very first thing that comes out of their mouth is the gay community sexual practice.
Right.
That's the very first thing that comes out.
That's the crazy thing.
That doesn't make you a full person. That's just part of who you are.
Exactly. And here is the reality, okay, folks? You as a person, right, should have a great enough sense of self to where you're not bothered by the interactions or the actions of other people. They should not impede upon your own identity or your own existence in this world. I understand that a lot of you are not people who have lived in other countries. I get that. I totally get that. And so to a certain extent, I understand the limited purview. Because you oftentimes, when you've not experienced the rest of the world personally and in person, right? Not from a touristic point of view.
Right.
Okay. I mean, actually lived, functioned, operated for moments of time, learn the language, speak the language. I speak 27 different languages. There's not a country that I have not lived in. The thing is, people in this world are not limited to the constructs that guide American minds. People in this world are so different. The world around you is so different. Get out of your own way. Okay. People will be whoever they want to be, and people will be who their society, environment, etc. helps to cultivate and shape them to be in addition to the things that their family of origin exposed them and prepared them for. Okay. That's the first component right there. The second piece is this. A person who is lesbian, gay, bisexual, intersex, whatever they want to be, those people are not impeding on my sense of self. And they're human beings, just like me, just like my children, just like everybody that I know. So guess what? I am not about to say that it's okay for me to restrict their practices in their personal lives that make them feel fulfilled just because it inconveniences me or it makes me feel away. Because guess what? They're having sex.
They're living their life.
Right. None of that stuff negates who I am as a woman. So it's not about support. Because to be honest with you, the LGBTQIA plus community doesn't need your support. What they need is your respect. Right. So it is the same agenda that the Black agenda was initially at the end of post-segregation. It is the exact agenda. But the problem is most of you aren't old enough to understand what that looked like. Mm-hmm. I was there to see what that looked like. And the reality is this. It was hard for people. It was very hard for people that were Black to just basically be recognized as a human being, even though they operated in the same capacity, the same jobs, the same things, the same deeds, the same areas, the same spaces as everybody else.
They were gay back then, too. A lot of our civil rights leaders were gay.
They were. But the reality is that wasn't an issue. The biggest issue was the fact that they had a Black face, brown skin. That was a problem.
I think it wasn't a big of issue back then either because it wasn't as, I don't even want to know, it wasn't as, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say flaming, but it wasn't as overt back then as it was now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's sexual, so let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. Back then, right? Mm-hmm. I talked about this in detail in one of the videos, the one that I did on the review of the Blues Clues thing a couple of shows ago. But back then, it was the LGB. So lesbian, gay, bisexual. Okay? So we were only talking about sexual orientation, and that was the community that was framed in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. LGB. So it did not address gender. The biggest component here right now is about gender. That's the biggest thing when it comes to the recognition and the rights and things like that. But the LGB component is something that everybody considers to be a private thing. That's why it wasn't a big thing, because who you have sex with is your business. Mm-hmm. It just is your business. Oftentimes, even though we talk about the what is it that one of my clients called it? Hotivity. We talk about the hotivity of people.
Personality disorder.
I love there's something I love about being a psychotherapist. There is something new in the language.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we talk about the hotivity of people, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
I know.
Whole facts.
I try not to laugh in sessions, but hearing that, it makes you just have a smirk on your face.
What's that?
Yeah, you know what that is.
Yeah, we do.
When she explained it to me, I almost died laughing. I was like, I love it. I got it. That's the new theme. That's my new thing.
It's like a Carfax on sexual activity.
Yeah. So sometimes we get so focused on hotivity of today's society that we don't remember that people were whores back in the day.
Back then too.
What do you think the song "Papa Was a Rolling Stone"?
I be stroking. It's a whole bunch of them.
Right. So I know a lot of you were a little bit too young to remember, but some of y'all was chanting these things, didn't even know what you was chanting. Mm-hmm. Because the music wasn't as abrupt and in your face as it is now.
Mm-hmm. The message was subtle.
We got a whole song, WAP, Wet Ass Pussy. That's a whole thing. It's a real song. And I'm like, that's the thing. That's on the charts.
Oh, she one-upped it. She has a song called Thought-ish, and she's being proud of being a thought. That's her new single right now. Exactly.
But we look at these things and we act like it's a new behavior, and people It isn't. You know, it's one of the most notable things that we see in some people that struggle with borderline personality disorder.
As I said earlier, it's not that we're acting. We know it used to happen, but now it's just front and center 24/7. There is no discretion. There is no, okay, I'm only gonna dress like this when I'm going for this occasion. It's every day I wake up, I'm going to project this image out to the world, and that's what's become popular amongst our culture.
Well, people are beginning to feel more comfortable expressing themselves. They have, the gay community have struggled with hiding that stuff. And this generation is saying, I'm not hiding anymore. I'm going to go out there and experiment, figure out whether I like girls, whether I like guys, whether I like both, whether I want to do something different with myself, but maintain who I am. People are willing to do that today. And I think our community is not comfortable with that because some of those folks are our brothers and sisters or children. Our mother, your mom who was married to your dad for 30 years says, I like another woman. And you go, what?
Right. Like, no, you don't.
Divorce. You divorce your dad and is living with another woman. And now we have to live with that and feels ashamed.
Exactly.
So it seems like both sides are just saying, you know what, screw it. I'm going to express myself in the hell with everybody.
Absolutely. That's a nice way to put it. They're stepping forward and saying, I am being the person that I envision I should be. And this is what it looks like.
And I'm proud about it.
Thank you.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing that I want to make sure that I make very, very clear. The one thing that I have noticed that is congruent across the board about people that I treat that are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community is that these people have a great sense of self. And the only thing that gets in the way of that sense of self, and then we see the suicide numbers start to increase, is the way that society treats them or responds or reacts to them. In their acceptance of who they are, in their expressions of who they are. It's interesting to me because when I was dating, I talk about this all the time because it was one of the things that just kind of scared me. I was on a date with a guy, and the guy was a white guy, and there was a black guy in the restaurant. When I walked in, and I was walking up to him, and the black guy, I guess, people look all the time. I'm accustomed to people looking at me. They stare a bit sometimes, and eventually they stop, and it's okay. And so when I sat down and my date had to go to the restroom, right? He was going to the restroom. This guy came and sat in his seat right across from me. Can you imagine? Look on my face. I'm like,
he was trying to protect you, black woman.
What are we
from what?
I was like, what are you doing? Why are you here? What are you doing? It was just like, you're a beautiful black queen. Apparently you don't love yourself. I'm here to love you, love on you. I would love to be your man. You don't need to be with this white man.
Umar sent him.
That you have been conditioned to believe is what you need because the right
you play an instrument.
I mean, he was extra. He was so extra. I'm telling you, he could have been a poet, a scholar of some
Umar. That he heard Umar had just said that he was like, you gotta go stay with it, black queen.
I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, sir.
Get lost.
Leave. He was like, no, I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna stay right here. What you think he gonna challenge me?
No, I called the police because you started.
Can you please move? Like, oh, what you think? I'm not good enough for you to date? My skin too black? People have their preferences. People should be allowed to date whoever they want to date. I hear more judgment coming from the black community than anybody else when it comes to who you decide to date, who you decide to marry, who you decide to be with.
Just doing anything in general, you're gonna get criticized by black people. It doesn't matter what it is. If you decide to do anything, you're gonna be criticized for it.
Like, how do you know that? And I hate it when Black people in society make the assumption that a person is of a particular race and that's it. That's all to them. Okay? The interesting thing is you don't know what my background is. Okay? So you don't know if I'm 100% a Black woman or a mixed Black woman or, you know, multicultural. You don't know these things. And I just happen to be. So the thing is this. What shapes my preferences is none of your business.
Right. And there is nothing wrong with preference.
Right. And it doesn't matter if I have a preference or not. I can date who I want to date. I can go out with who I want to go out. I can be friends who I want with, you know. And the same thing, we have to keep that same energy when it comes to people who are members of the LGBTQIA plus community. They're people. They are individuals. And oftentimes they're more autonomized than people that are in the heterosexual community.
Because the level of strength they take to present who they are in front of, you know, a community that is totally against them is significant strength. That is a lot of strength.
Exactly. And, you know, it breaks my heart that the number, you know, to see the numbers of them who succumb to suicide because the world around them wasn't ready. People, we have got to be people that are more accepting of people who don't look like us. The world does not have to look like you.
But the funny part about that is we're the people always talking about people shouldn't judge us based on our skin color.
Yep.
Based us off our actions, and we're the total opposite.
And that's the discord within the Black community. Because if you look at my family, there's 4 of us. And there's 4 distinct complexion.
Right.
It's not even light shades or that. It's 4 distinct complexion. My husband, my 2 boys, and myself. My own culture, my mother. If I tell you about my mother, you see my mother.
Exactly. And it's interesting to me, like the people who think that the color of somebody's skin is the merit of their character. It's the content, literally, of their character. Umar making these statements are a disgrace to this entire field. They are. I'm a person that believes that regardless of what your education level is, what your credentials are, what it is that you do, you should never limit your personal expression of what your views are. However, in this particular case, I think for the first time in my life, I feel like he's one of those people that definitely needs to be silenced. Everybody has a right to their opinions, but when you have a certain amount of a broken community, that's what we are as people who identify with the Black community. When you have so many people that are a part of a broken community in the way that this community has been broken. The vicarious trauma is what continues to divide us. It's what continues to confuse our young people. It's what continues to incite the level of violence and maladaptive means of coping with their distress and disagreements with one another. When you have so many that are following the words and the leadership of this type of person, he definitely has to be silenced. It's okay and it's funny and things when Kevin Samuels says the things that Kevin Samuels says because I mean,
he's an entertainer. He lets you know.
Yeah. And there is a need for him because what he's doing is just giving his advice. His advice is something that's like everybody got an opinion. They're like assholes. Everybody has them. There are an abundance of them out here. Not one is greater than the other one. Well, I wouldn't know but I walked right into that one and don't know.
The doctor just told on herself.
Don't come for me and troll me, okay? Because I don't know. But it's a body part. You says we have so much empathy for this abomination, but yet Umar is preaching rhetoric. It is. It literally is. It's interesting that you think it's an abomination. What are you basing that off of?
Okay. Can I, Dick Russ? You know I'm a dick. You spell rhetoric wrong, sir. I'm a dick. That's just what I do. But no,
I know what you mean.
But Russ, even if it's an abomination to you, okay. But you have to admit that Umar preaches some pretty dangerous shit now. Umar preaches a message of
war. He said that we need to gear our kids up, our black kids up, to be active in the war that is coming, because black community needs to overtake another community of people.
I don't know too many men that listen to Umar anymore. It's mostly women, because he's pitching his school to single parent moms to get them to bring their kids there. So his message sounds good to them because he's using the fear of the police are killing our black boys and they're doing this and they're shooting us down in the street. He's scaring the women into thinking, oh, my school is needed. Because that's the problem I have with anybody that does the racism element too much. We can say, yes, it exists, but are you encountering it day after day after day where it's affecting your life? 99.9% of us can say, no, it's not. But we will act like it does.
Right. And so the reality is this. The incongruence that I see in his message is this. Talk about a world. Now, when you talk about a world, that means that you're outside of just America, honey. You talk about a world that's not ready to receive black people, and you talk as if like African people and black American people are the same. They're synonymous in some way, shape, form, or fashion. They're not. Culture's different. Okay. And you talk about a world, an entire world that is racist towards people with dark skin. And you talk about policing that is directly targeting black people. There are behaviors inside of the black American community that are at bay for the way that the police the black community. That is the real issue. If you want to fix the issue within the black community, you have to go your ass into the community, Umar. Go into those communities where black people are killing one another in insurmountable numbers. Go into those communities and take your teaching to a different level of self-appreciation and self-love, and overcoming your obstacles by way of achieving the educational level that you talk about, so important for the black community.
And tell how he made it out. Tell what he did to make it out. That's one thing the successful people stop doing.
Right.
They forget to tell what they did to make it out. But then, like, that's one of the things with LeBron James. LeBron James has been pretty much rich and famous since he was 14. He's had police escorts probably since he was 14 all over the world, but now he got a platform. He's a millionaire, a billionaire almost, and he's like, well, police are hunting us down every day. Bro, like, tell us about the struggles you went through as a teen, and let us know about your issues that you had with the police, since they're a big issue in your life, supposedly.
Right.
His kids hadn't been pulled over by the police. His wife hadn't. His mom hadn't. He hadn't had any mom stories since he's been 20 years almost.
I think that in acknowledging what is the issue inside the black community, I think that we have to be honest. There are certain things that we're afraid to approach. There are certain truths that we're afraid to accept. There are certain narratives that don't fit our agenda of being. How does one say?
A victim.
There you go.
There you go.
I didn't want to say it because people always talk to me about the victim blaming. One of y'all commented that, by the way. So if I'm blaming the victims, let me blame the victims. I believe in accountability and I'm here for it. So I don't play the game of shaming other people in your agenda, because it fits what your narrative is that allows you to stay in a place and continue to gravitate towards the behaviors that keep you in the same space of counterproductivity to the end game.
And you hold people hostage because you don't know how to fix stuff. And this is a psychologist who doesn't know how to fix stuff.
Yeah. I refuse to accept or perpetuate the cycle that keeps Black people in a mindset of hostility, reactivity, hypersensitivity, and those sorts of things because of perceived negative views of the community that we live in towards us, because it's a perceptual thing. How would you know how a person feels about you if you've never engaged with that person? How would you know that a person is going to be racist towards you if you've never engaged with that person? So if you proceed into a conversation and your ideas are that that person has a certain level of bias towards you, you haven't engaged yet, you are now the racist.
Umar doesn't even have any racist stories in his everyday life. The only time he comes up with the racist stories is when he's explaining why he's failed to pay a bill. But when he's traveling the country, but while he's traveling the country on these airplanes, staying in these hotels and stuff, he ain't got no problem with the white man.
But that's the thing. I told you the reason that he can't share as to how he came out of his situation is because he's made his money, he's built his platform, he's gained his successes by manipulating people that are in positions where they can't find themselves in a more productive space that are a part of the Black community.
Manipulating and control.
Yes.
Yes, he found out how to be a church without religion. I was just saying, he found out how to be a church without religion.
But it's interesting to me that he has so much to say, and these people that are commenting feel like, you know, people that are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community are an abomination of humanity. They feel that way. However, where are you getting this information? Who told you this information?
Like, what has somebody in that community done something to you? If it's anything, we are more likely to do something to them.
Right.
Because of our fear.
Even if they did, 1 interaction, 2 interactions, 3 interactions with a person does not, or certain people that identify with a certain community don't justify that all of your interactions will be that way. Yeah. When we talk about the way that the police officers respond to our communities, and we move into a place of resistance and resiliency where we are staying in our same energy, saying that police officers are targeting us unfairly and all that extra jazz, right? Where do we ever ask the question, what led up to that encounter?
Why did the police officer pull me over?
Why did the police officer not only pull me over, but why did he respond to me in the way that he responded to me? For the police officer, what was the perceived threat? We don't hear people asking those questions. We just don't.
They just assume it's because I'm Black.
Right.
Right. And it might start with you were going 90.
Exactly.
in a 70s, in a 65-mile zone. So what he's supposed to do is pull you over.
Yeah.
When he pulls you over, you stick your head out and say, why did you pull me over?
And when a police officer asks you to put your hands on the steering wheel, or they ask you to step outside of the vehicle, why are you engaging them with a high level of hostility and emotional reactivity that prevents you from being able to understand what comes next in the process, prevents you from being able to connect and listen to understand what it is that he's asking you to do so that you may comply appropriately? What is it that your responsibilities are as a citizen of the United States of America? I think that becomes an overarching concern for me when it comes to the Black community, because there is a component to Umar's message that really grounded my gears. Because let me tell you something. When you tell people that regardless of your compliance, police officers are still going to blame you for doing something, they're still going to find a way to create a new law that you fall under, and as a result, they're going to prosecute you. That is a lie. That is a blatant lie. Because it's impossible for a law to be developed after you have been arrested for a crime and then you be prosecuted.
Charge you for that.
How stupid do you think Black people are? For me, that is an insult to the intelligence of every Black person that is listening to that message. And if you didn't take offense to that message, there is something wrong with you.
Hard truth. He knows most Black people are stupid. That's why he's been able to collect money for a school for over 10 years.
I never
hadn't opened.
There's nothing.
I think that we have to be people that hold ourselves accountable to what we invite into our energy center. If we are Black people that say that we want to cultivate and shape greatness and we want to see ourselves on the side of success, we have to move into a place that positions us for success and education and insight. Stop expecting people to hand you something that you did not work for. Stop expecting something from a system that you refuse to put into. I think it's very interesting to me that Black people say that they are the minority, but when it's time to vote and when it's time to get somebody out of office, when they ask for Black people to come together and they ask for Black people to vote, I'll be damned if that person don't get out of office.
We're the majority then.
Exactly.
We got Trump out of office.
Exactly.
Like, wait, what? Right. It's just like, wait a minute. Yeah. So y'all went to the polls to keep him from winning. He won, but sometime this time y'all got him out.
I don't understand that. So I think that Dr. Umar, I'm calling for accountability. He mentioned at the very onset of one of his videos that whomever invites him to come on their platform and have a conversation, that he'd be open to having that conversation. So share this with him.
DM him on IG. You can DM him this video on IG.
DM people on IG. I don't know why Trey continues to have me having.
Oh goodness, you gotta get with the. Well, he's not young. He know how to IG and he'll respond because you're a woman. But you just hit share. If you're on your cell, I don't know if like on my cell phone I have all my apps connected, so when I hit share, I can just send it to.
You can pull him up. Okay.
StreamYard is not an app.
No, but StreamYard isn't, but it's on YouTube. So when you get off on StreamYard, you can go to your cell phone and hit share, and you can send it to IG, Twitter. Okay. You can send it to Twitter, and you can add them. You can. Yes, you have to add. It's to like get his attention.
Just like on Facebook, how you have the add to send it particularly to somebody. You do the same.
I don't even know how to do that on Facebook.
Oh no, you sound old.
I have
to. Okay, we may have to talk to Beaver. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to my technological expert, the 12-year-old. But I don't know how to do all of that stuff. But I'm definitely gonna learn, because I'm going to make sure that I share this and you guys share it also in the interim, because I definitely want to invite him on to have a conversation. I don't believe in engaging in rhetoric that promotes the disadvantages or reducing the rights and privileges of other people, because people are human beings and that's it. And I don't like hearing a person connect the dots to LGBT initiative and saying that, oh, well, these people, that's still a mental illness. I didn't say I hate people that are a part of that community. That's not what I said. This woman was obviously emotionally charged, and I feel like his response was condescending. He told her, well, first thing, we're going to remove the emotionality out of this.
I don't blame him for that one, because, women are emotional.
Men are
but that's emotion doesn't mean we still can't think about and understand how the situation is.
Women are more
in fact, you do need logic and emotion to totally understand situations. When you just do logic, you miss the point. When you just do emotion, you miss the point.
You gotta have both, so it has to make sense. Right. And she asked a valid question, and if I'm a person who is asking you a valid question and you're a professional and you're up here giving this speech and you've made this statement, I'm here for your accountability. Let me know why you made this statement, and I want you to stand by what you said. I don't want to move or shift your perspective. I want to find out. I want to now listen to understand what it is that was going through your mind that made this thing make sense. Help it make sense for me in a way that I understand where you're coming from. Not in a way that I'm now convinced to where I move off of my message, but now that I understand you better, I can move in from a place of understanding when I decide to no longer follow you, no longer invest in you, or decide to do the opposite because I have a greater understanding that now resonates with me in a greater way. And so the way that I do this is I bring it all full circle, because for me, it's about accountability. Homosexuality is not a disorder that is classified in the DSM-5 simply because society evolved It's not because the DSM-5 is a Eurocentric manual that's inundated and not effective in diagnosing Black people. It is a very reliable source for diagnosing anyone who happens to be a human being, because the human condition is understood in various contexts. It also includes differential diagnosing that applies to society, culture, and all of those factors that may be contraindications to any diagnosis that fall within the scope of that particular manual. That's what I will say about that. If you are not a clinician, and I like to say a treating clinician, because it's a whole different ball game to be a person that's reading things and a person that's reading and doing things. Okay. If you're not a treating clinician, then you need to lane. This isn't your lane. Period. Point blank. If you are a treating clinician and you still have an issue and you struggle with diagnosing, because a lot of people do, I need you to go and read that thing like it's the Bible and get more familiarized with the different components of it and stop sticking to one or two diagnoses because they all look alike. Okay. Expand your horizon, enroll in higher education. We have a university. Go out here and apply yourself, invest in yourself, become a greater advocate for mental health. And the other component is this: saying to Black people that you don't need to understand, or you don't need to have a better understanding of the DSM or your conditions. You don't need to be seeing a therapist and things like that. It kind of goes to stigmatizing mental illness. If we want to be balanced and calibrated beings, we need to better understand our conditions. We need to understand why we operate in the way that we operate. We need to understand how trauma resonates and stores in our body, our brain, our mental faculties, in the way that we operate, our emotionalism. And all of these components of us have interconnected entities. So if you're going to a place of therapy, it's not about you being labeled. It's about you having a better understanding of what you're going through so that you can move to a higher level of functioning and become your greatest version of yourself. It has nothing to do with the comparison of other people. You are a person who is as valid as the next person, regardless of what you decide to do in your life. Okay? Period. Regardless of what Umar says. And Black people are not in a war with the rest of the world. You're in a war with yourself.
But they're in a war right here in this country with each other.
Exactly. The number of Black kids that are dying on these streets, and for Umar to call somebody out in the LGBTQIA community in their movement and ask them what did they do in response to Michael Brown being murdered, that's atrocious.
What were they supposed to do?
Just stop.
I didn't do anything for Michael Brown.
Exactly. What the hell are you doing for the insurmountable numbers of kids that are being killed by one another in the Black community? That's my question to him. What'd you do?
And like I shared earlier, the young kid who didn't wear his mask, and the girl said the store requires a mask. He walks out the store, comes back and shoots the lady, kills her.
Oh, in Atlanta, I saw that.
Yes.
Well, in Decatur, I saw that the other day.
Ended somebody's life over a mask.
Shot the clerk. Yep.
That's
And
where he
wounded
needs
the
to step
deputy.
it.
So help me understand, where is the accountability? Black community, y'all gotta help me with this.
Where's the mentoring that older Black men is supposed to provide to young black males?
We're trying to get there now. The 80s generation, kind of the 60s, 70s generation, they kind of dropped the ball.
But
those were our civil rights leaders and things of that nature.
True.
The 80s guys, they were. So we're trying to correct it, but it's hard because with me personally, I start out with pointing at the Black woman, and that gets you shut down.
Well, that's part of his role, believe it or not. That's the perception he has, that I'm a mentor. So I understand what it's like to be a Black male in the community. And when I tell you something, I'm talking about experience, and this is what you need to do because this is what's worked. And what he's sharing is not healthy.
Exactly.
It's even not safe.
So, right. And instead of inciting a sense of self, a sense of individualism, a sense of acceptance, a sense of acknowledgement, a sense of greater being and purpose, in Black people, he's inciting violence. He's telling people to get ready for a war. Where is this perceived fear coming from? Told you that this is what's the coming. What are you, like the next disciple of God or something? Is he talking to you? You sure?
Yes. He's compared himself to Jesus several times. He says they share the same birthday.
Well,
he wants to be Marcus Garvey.
There's a diagnosis for that too in the DSM.
Right.
No, these are public things that he said, though. He compares himself to Jesus all the time.
Sure. So does the guy who has lost his ability to have reality. Says he is. He's hearing God is telling him that. We understand
catatonic because God's wrath came over him because he didn't kill all of those people.
Well, he talks about the Orishas. He sticks to African gods and goddesses.
So
he uses fancy stuff to confuse his audience.
Look, let me make something very clear. Okay. There are several tribes and several nations in Africa. Most African people in developed parts of Africa are Christian or Catholic.
But he says that was forced on them by the colonizers.
It wasn't forced on them. No
I'm just telling what your Omar say. I agree with you.
That's BS. I can have a couple of Africans come on here and talk about it. I have a couple of Africans in my network.
We'll bring them on with him.
Gone to seminary. I mean, and it's a very important thing for them, to their culture, because the difference in African people and Black American people is this: they have a sense of self.
So, yes.
They know who they are.
They have traditions and rituals.
Exactly.
Passed down over
they don't need Umar
The
Johnson.
role of the elderly is to continue to pass that down.
Yeah, they don't need Umar Johnson. They got they got a whole other thing for them.
It wouldn't make sense to them. He'd be lost.
Right. So the reality is this: we have to become people that have a greater understanding and a greater capacity to operate with true understanding when we're dealing with other people. People are going to be who they are. Who are we to judge them?
And when I listened to you when he told a woman that the first thing he said was he was going to remove emotion. That's a way of shutting her down.
Yeah,
that's a way of telling the audience women are emotional, can't think straight, can.
So her point of view is invalid. Her question is invalid.
Let me straighten this out. But that's a control issue right there.
Exactly.
He's controlling his audience to continue to live in stereotypical ways of how people is. Because the reality is not all women is emotional. Whatever that's supposed to mean.
Right, and even if we are emotional, that doesn't mean that we operate off of emotion in and of itself.
Right.
Emotions are a part of the human condition.
Right.
You are a person that has no effect whatsoever. That means
you treat them, Dr. J.
I'm gonna let y'all have that one tonight. But Dr. Jefferson, you said, "Who are we to judge?" I keep telling you, I am here to judge. We all are here to judge. But as we judge people, and the people that we judge should realize, and they should realize, our judgment doesn't mean shit.
Not to the larger role of their conditioning and who they are. And so that's what I'm saying. So I definitely hold people accountable. I judge people for their actions that are not necessarily conducive to the goals or the overall gain that they say is their end game. And the same thing with Umar. I think that he is definitely out of line for doing what he's doing now. But it doesn't mean that I feel like my ideals of who people are and how they become are greater than their own personal ideas that they hold themselves.
Exactly. It's just a judgment. My judgment of people, only time it makes me treat them differently if I think it's detrimental to my life.
Or other people for me. Because that's kind of the nature of the business that we do.
And it may not be a judgment. It's an understanding because of the kind of work we do, that we have a little more insight into understanding behavior. Because we are a creature of habits, believe it or not. We have a little more insight of understanding behavior. And as a man who takes pride in saying he's a psychologist, it's an insult to the profession to preach and present himself in a way that is not genuine.
Exactly.
That's the issue. And that's not a judgment. If I see him today, I would tell him that too. I mean, I would.
Like I said, he's more than welcome on this platform. And at the end of the day, I feel like you guys have got to make better choices. Like, I have no idea why people continue to do the things that they do and make the complaints that they make. If you are a person who really and truly believes that the Black culture, right, is being unjustly or unfairly targeted, then you are a person that is blind to the fact that these kids in the Black community, these adults in the Black community are killing each other at alarming rates.
People are scared to speak out.
Oh my God.
But I'm seriously, that's what it is. People are scared to speak out.
Well, they have lived, you know, if you listen to their life and their history, that is normal to them. So
exactly,
we standing on the outside looking at it and understand that this is not healthy, this is not safe, this is not okay. They're living it every day, and that becomes their norm.
That's why I talk about it, because it was normal. It's time to not to stop talking about it. I mean, again, I point to our elders. Who are our elders? Benjamin Crump, Jesse Jackson, those type cats. They're not out here talking to kids or to Black men.
He's a part of the problem. He's capitalizing off of it.
Right.
Umar Johnson, he's capitalizing off of it. Kevin,
but they know what goes on in the hood while living in their cushy neighborhoods, and they don't talk about it. They would rather say the police are doing it.
I mean, is it? I mean, let me. I'm trying to say this right.
Okay.
Are we putting too much responsibility on one person? I mean, he's saying what he's saying, but it's up to the right people to grab it and gravitate with
the right person. So when you sat down and you had this conversation with these other Black men who sat there and they were for it, and they gave you a platform to have this conversation with people that were following their platform, okay? And your words were that you are here to replace the conditioning in the Black community that makes the Black community less apt to fight the war that is coming and the war that Black people are in. And you're having these conversations. I played y'all the video. What do you mean? Like, this is what he said he's here to do. He's here to address the issue.
I mean, I don't like Dr. Umar, first of all. You know what I'm saying? So don't try to reverse pin that on me that I'm speaking. No, because that's what we do to each other when somebody having an opinion. You know what I'm saying?
It's not about not liking.
And I've been in fights with Umar. I've been in fights with these Umar conversations and stuff because people are not looking at it logically.
I'm not a person who likes or dislikes him because I don't know him. And my personal opinions of you, even if I do like you or don't like you, doesn't negate it. It doesn't negate the validity of claims if you make claims that make sense. I'm about pragmatic. Susanna, I'll tell you, I don't care. I could not like you. If you say something that makes sense, I personally do not like Kevin Samuels. I can say that openly, without a shadow of a doubt. However, the guy is entertaining. He's entertaining. What can I say?
Man, I think that question would have more validity if you were asking that about Tommy Sotomayor, Kevin Samuels, and Kwame Brown. These guys are just entertainment figures.
We mixing up too much stuff right now.
Well, I'm
trying to stay direct on what we're talking about.
Okay, I'm getting back to your Umar. I'm saying when you asked the question, are we giving too much power to that one man? I said that question would be more valid if you were asking it about people like Kevin Samuels, who we know are entertainer. Umar goes around saying that he was a principal, he was a school psychologist, he does this, he writes books. So he's presenting himself as a professional, telling Black people that white people hate them.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand this, man. I've been watching this dude since 2009. What I'm trying to say is...
So we didn't give him the power.
Let me finish, money. What I'm trying to say is, even though, you know what I'm saying, we don't like his delivery of what he's saying, how we going to say that what he's saying ain't true? We have a war coming. And the way we're talking now, if this message get up out there, it's making us even more weak. Because it ain't even
coming when Jesus come back. So what's going to happen first?
No. Wait, Trey. What
What's a war? A war is what we tried to start. A war is what we tried to start last year when we walked up on, what was that, Bunker Hill? You know what I'm saying? We looking at a war as far as many different avenues to this war, to this revolution. You know what I'm saying?
Help me understand. Define the revolution for me that's coming. I need to know because I don't see it coming.
The revolution is already here. Your country is being took over.
By what?
By what? By Marxists who brainwashed our people. You know what I'm saying? First, who did that? Whoever these outsiders are, whoever these Black Lives Matter members are, whoever these leaders are in these positions that people elected, you know what I'm saying, has our people's minds fucked up and trying to initiate a revolution. If you didn't notice, that's what we're going through right now.
I didn't notice. Help me understand it then. Pray, hold on for it because I'm here for this. So help me, educate me as to what was brainwashed in the Black community. What was the thing?
All this access racism that we're calling out is one. If we're calling out, if we're calling out something that we're saying right now that really don't exist, but we're trying to make it a big issue. You know what I'm saying? We're only 14% of this country from what they say. We've been there for the last 40, 50 years. You know what I'm saying? That's an odd number to hold.
Who says that? Where are you getting that?
That's just the number that I hear about. You know what I'm saying? I'm just having a conversation. I'm not coming with no papers, no stats, no graphs, and all that. I'm just having a conversation.
So we first of all, we're here to debunk the BS. So Black people are definitely not a 10% or 14% representation of the United States. Black people that identify with the Black community are more like a 67% representative population of the United States.
We're no longer a minority.
I said if they're saying that we're 14%, my words were if they're saying.
They're not
well, that's what I've been hearing. So there's a lot of people that's going around spreading out false information. I didn't look that up myself before I said it. I apologize.
So the census reports are telling that the reporting according to the census is 10 to 14%. However, if you compare the tax filings, ID filings, like that's how people exist based on identification, driver's license, Department of Driver Services. So some people are federal employees and have access to that information. But the point is that information differs on a large margin. And that's up to this year, especially after this election. Because if you want to catch it, that's when you're going to catch it. All of those people that don't exist that voted. So come with it. Give me the war on Black people. Give me the war on Black people because I'm here for it.
It ain't just the war on us, but I have to look at us because I am Black. You know what I'm saying? I can't speak for everybody else. You know what I'm saying? What I see is we're in trouble.
We could agree with that.
We're in trouble. We're distracted in too many ways. We can't get nothing out. Like now I'm trying to get something out and I'm getting cut off with highly educated people when you're not trying to hear what I'm trying to say.
So
you know what I'm saying? We have a failure of communication. You know what I'm saying? I'm just talking. I just came in to talk. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So there's a difference. So there's a difference in me cutting you off. If I muted you, that would be me cutting you off. If I never invited you back to finish conveying a particular message or point, then that would be me cutting you off. Me cutting you off would be doing what Trey does on his toxic masculinity show. However, I'm clarifying and debunking the myth because on my channel, it's about accountability and facts. That's it. That's all we're here for. So if you come on and the things that you're speaking of, which ground the thing that I'm asking you to explain to me, are rooted in fallacies that are part of the conditioning that you're talking about, then I'm going to correct you. I'm going to give you further information. I'm going to give you further resources to go look at to validate the information that you present with, and then I'm going to ask you to continue to elaborate.
So you saying paperwork is going to over-validate what we see in an everyday life with our own eyes.
What do you see? What do you see every day?
I mean, I see a bunch of bull crap. You know what I'm saying? I see this LGBT stuff that's invading into our community that you know what I'm saying, we speaking up for, but we haven't even spoke up for ourselves yet. You know what I'm saying? They're coming off our back.
The paperwork she was talking about was pointing out that we're not the minority anymore. That's the paperwork she was talking
right.
about.
And
She was just trying to throw that out there.
But wait, because I want him to clarify a couple of things. Because in the narrative just now, he was saying that the LGBT community and their initiative is infiltrating the Black agenda. So let me talk about that a little bit. Black people are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community synonymously as they are a part of the Black community issue. The Black
I heard all that. I've been here the whole show.
Right. So the Black community issue is not limited to white people or other people targeting unfairly and unjustly Black community. That's not the issue.
You don't think it's attacking our culture when we got most of us locked up? You know what I'm saying? And
man, you know my position on this one, so I don't even have to say nothing.
No, that's the fact. No,
the issue.
That's
one
not
of the issue.
White people didn't lock us up. We locked ourselves up by engaging in practices that we did or didn't know were illegal at the time that we engaged in them, and then having the mindset and the know-how and the maneuverability to think that we weren't supposed to be caught because we were Black.
And then we don't want to take responsible for our behavior.
There you go. Take responsibility for your behaviors. Lots of people. Let me make something. Self-disclosure. I have a cousin who is locked up right now, serving a lifetime sentence for murdering another Black man. And he's a Black man. And guess what? When he was sentenced, even though the conditions around him murdering this particular person involved another person who is also a relative, right? Right? And he's been locked up for 25 years now, serving that sentence. So even though that involved that person was his brother. And he was never in any type of quarrels whatsoever. Didn't even know this person that he murdered. He was called into a situation to rescue his brother because his brother was in the wrong situation, dealing with a situation in the wrong way, because even though he was out here in these streets messing with a girl, he was fighting another Black man over the other dude's girl. Like, he's not even your girlfriend no more. She your baby mama. What are you even doing here? You pulled up, you manipulated your brother into coming with you, thinking that you
somebody else.
And here it is, this dude answers the door because you know he lives here, and you punch him in the face. When he kicks your ass, your brother comes into the fight. When you're calling him, you just gonna let him beat me like this? And he does what you ask him to do. Get him off of me. You said get him off of me. He did that. But he had a moment and he hit him too many times. As a result, the guy died. The guy was 19 years old. He was like 17 at the time. Okay? The brother, which is also my cousin, was like 19 years old at the time. But guess what? He's out here living his whole best life. Has he done anything for his brother? Knowing that his brother not only took that charge, but made sure that the police felt like he wasn't even there. Forget all the witnesses, including the baby mama and all of that. That's the problem in our community, okay? I'm the person that's here for it, and I'm like, well, you police officers need to do a better job because obviously this person never would have killed him. That's not justice for this guy's family. Lock up the cousin. I'm here for it. I do not play when it comes to accountability. This young man lost his life because somebody else couldn't manage their emotions. Because a woman decided to move on, and that's in the Black community. All of that is in the Black community. The reason why the issues exist in the Black community and we are locked up is because people like you feel like somebody else is targeting us, and all of that getting inside of our inner psyche, making us do these things.
First of all, I never had a chance to even say that.
Your assumption was.
Your assumption is what you just said. That I didn't ever say that.
Let me finish. You don't see all of us locked up.
You never mind. You know what? This conversation ain't going the way I planned it to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and step down.
That's fine.
I thought you was on the money team for real.
I'm 100% about accountability.
You treat me like shit on your panel.
That's what it is. So my thing is, you guys will not come on here spewing lies. It's about accountability. If you're a part of the Black community, you need to take accountability. These people, these children dying, That is an issue. That is the Black community's issue. That is our wars within ourselves. If we fail to recognize that this is the issue, and we continue to target the police officers unfairly that are trying to police our communities that we've allowed to get out of control, then we are a part of the problem.
I point out all the time that if we feel like the police are unpolicing us fairly and our community is the majority Black, why aren't more Black people becoming police officers?
But they are.
But they are.
Yeah, but they're blue now. They're not Black anymore.
Well, I'm saying if they're like, it's still not cool to be a police officer. We can say they're joining, but there's still these parents that say, fuck the police, you ain't gonna be the police, we don't talk to the police. That still exists.
Agreed. And that's the part of the problem. That's why these children are growing up and they commit crimes like they commit. And they think that they're supposed to get away with it because the Black community has conditioned them to think that they are above the law. They are unfairly targeted when they commit crimes. I understand the content of us saying some people who are not Black get sentenced to less time than Black people. If that's the argument, I can entertain that. What I cannot entertain is how many of us are in jail, right?
For actually doing the crime.
Exactly.
I know we hear that about the weed all the time, and I'm asked all the time, well, do you think that they should let all the people out that sold weed back then now that it's legal? I said no, because it was illegal at the time that they did it.
Right.
It's illegal still today in some states.
In some states, it's still illegal. So it's about whether or not you're operating from a place of legality when you're doing the things that you're doing. If you are a person that promotes people operating in illegal practices, right? Illegal practices. What else do you expect to be the outcome? What else do you expect to be the outcome? If you're a person that thinks that it's okay for our young people to be out here strung out on drugs, and you can't see that that's an issue in the Black community, that we are people that are more willing to okay the use of substances and medications in our kids that they don't necessarily need as a means to silence them. If you are that kind of person, before you're able to say that we need to be held accountable for our actions, be more sensitive to our children and our women in our community because they are the future of our community. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, those are issues. And to me, that is where the war is in the Black community. Yeah, it's a confusion as to where we belong. So my problem with Umar's message is the inconsistencies in his position in the Black community. So you have to make it make sense for me. When I ask people, somebody please educate me, help me understand where this war is in the Black community. And you tell me, oh, well, you start out with, well, you don't see all of us locked up. That's not an answer to the question. I don't see enough of us locked up. When you're talking about unsolved crimes, unsolved murder cases in the hundreds of thousands in the United States for just the last 3-4 years. You understand what I'm saying?
In the Black community, it's a lot of murderers running around.
Right. To me, that is a problem. I don't see how you guys don't see that's a problem, because the issue really is this. I see people complaining about Tamika Mallory a lot because she's now taking on Tamir Rice's mom in that movie and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, well, she ain't care about us. She just chasing a bag. Tamir Rice's mother never had to really understand what the real issue was in Black America until Tamir Rice was dead. Because the reality is this: our kids that are unfairly targeted could never be unfairly targeted if all of us hold each other accountable. If we just held each other accountable when things happen in our community and we lived up to the standard that was set by our forefathers, none of us would be unfairly targeted in 2021. Life is about evolution.
Thinking about Tamir Rice now makes me realize why my mom wouldn't allow us to play with guns as kids. She wouldn't buy any toy guns, any BB guns. She was not for it. Makes sense now. She never came out and said it's because I think the police are going to do something. She just wouldn't allow it.
Because it's a natural thing. Because you got to understand, police officers. If I think what would happen if, and I feel like cops try to do it all the time, you know, and first responders. I think that they try to help people to understand what it's like all the time. And I think that people who have served in the United States military in whatever capacity have a greater understanding. We do because we've been there. All of us have to take charge and, you know, have fire guard, or we have to act as the MP, military police at some point when we are deployed. Okay. When you understand what it is like for you to be on the other end of that threat or perceived threat, you have a different understanding of the police and their job altogether. They're responding every single day to emergency situations where people are very violent. What gauges how they respond is the level of crime and the types of crime committed in that particular community as of late. Okay, so their crime statistics. They keep track of reported crimes. And so if an abundance of people were murdered and they're found in the backyards and in the side of the yards and where it's in between houses and inside of houses, unresponsive gunshot wounds, do you think that if you are a police officer, you're going to respond to a call where somebody said shots fired or somebody said this person threatened to kill me? Do you think that you're going to respond in a way that you are making sure that you're preserving self, or self-preservation as they call it in the military? Or do you think you're going to respond, I don't know, leaving your gun on the seat of your car and get out and walk up to the house and say, hey, is anything going on here? These things are common sense.
Well, it's common sense when you actually get out of victim mentality. A lot of us still have that victim mentality. As progressive as we are, it's still easy to want to blame someone for the condition of everyone, despite, like, because my response to don't you see all of us locked up would be, don't you see all of us that are successful? Comes down to choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But his thing was, that's something that justifies that we're currently in the midst of a war against us, because we are being brainwashed to think XYZ. We're not being brainwashed to think anything. The clear picture here is that Black people are dying a lot. They are dying a lot. And the people that are killing the Black people
is other Black
people for the majority of the Black people that are dying. So I understand that some police officers are killing them. Guess what? In Africa, the Black police are killing Black folks too.
Yeah, didn't they just have a whole campaign of the special police being banned somewhere in Africa?
Yeah, they did. And guess what? It's so sad. But in that same exact protest, there were several African people killed by the same special police. And I had to watch that live from the security feed of a compound that I have ties to there. That's a whole different issue. That's a whole different issue over there. So when you talk about police brutality, if you go to some of these countries and you see how they police their communities and things like that, you get a whole different perspective for one. But I feel like there are a lot of things that we turn a blind eye to, because we say that because we're Black American, the world is unfair towards us. That to me is brainwashing. To me, that is preventing us from moving into a space of productivity, to where we can be conducive to the overall gain, to where we can be people that are successful. And so that we can be people as a culture of people who understand who we are and where we came from. When we tell ourselves that white people are against us, we naturally not only traumatize ourselves, but the line of people that are behind us.
And we prevent ourselves from thinking other ways that we can live our life.
Yeah,
we stand together. You start reacting rather than everything is a reaction.
And so, but the thing is, I don't want what is his name? Mad whatever. Whatever his name is. My thing is this, your message is not invalidated. It's just not received by me as a truth of the Black condition, because the Black condition right now is that the Black community is lost as to who we are as a society, what it means to be a person that is Black American, because the reality is we're so separated and we want to continue to divide ourselves, while the ancestors, the forefathers that built this platform for people to thrive, that look like you, that look like me, those people were about inclusivity. They were not about separatism. They were not about division. They were not about being their own separate or having their own separate spaces. They were about finding means to become an inclusive part of the whole, to be recognized and respected as a whole. And it started with the first component being differentiation. So being an individual society that built their own financial stability, their own interconnected network and culture, and Black Wall Street. And I'm so happy that they're finally giving more information about that for you guys to understand where you come from. But the reality is that that was the beginning of something they saw an end leading to inclusivity, because they wanted to enter into society inclusive with white people, with something of their own to add to that said society. It's like investments. Understanding investments and buying into companies and ownership and things like that. You can't join a company. You can't buy shares with no money. You understand what I'm saying? You can't enter into an investment that's already established, that's successful, with no portfolio showing that you have a history of successful and knowledgeable financial investments. So I think it's about the Black community becoming more conscientious of who they are. You can't do that with you when you have somebody like Umar spewing a rhetoric that the world is against us and there is a war against Black people that includes white people being against us. You cannot have a person that is divisive within the Black community saying that the lesbian and gay agenda is not the Black agenda. It's not the same as the Black agenda. If we're aligning ourselves with a better understanding, we understand that the exact same thing that the LGBTQIA plus community is they're going through right now is the exact same thing
the Black community.
Black Americans had to go through post-segregation. Literally, it was about being recognized as an individual, recognized as somebody that could be respected as a human being, that had innate rights that they were entitled to, result of them being a human being and the Constitution being something that had been amended to include them as a recognized entity because they are a citizen. So it's about a greater capacity for understanding. That's what it is about. You don't have to like them. Black people are not asking white people to like them. Lesbian people are not asking you to like them. If they're not your cup of tea, keep it moving.
And I think
they're not asking you to like them. They have a real.
Actually, Black people are asking white people to like them nowadays.
We're asking them to respect us.
Exactly.
Well, it went from respect to like now. It's just you gotta like me. You have to accept that I'm Black. You have to say you like my hair. You have to. Like, I know y'all have seen these videos of the women on the airplane cussing out white women saying they're the queen of the world and stuff like that. It's about like me now. But don't say anything to me.
That's young people. That's young people because, like I told you, there is a sense of cultural identity that is missing there. So when you don't know who you are and you're lost and you're trying to find who you are, you're forcing components on other people just so that you can have solidarity in what you think you might be becoming.
And that's really behind all that is I want to be respected. And if you respect me, my hair would not be an issue for you. The color of my skin would not be an issue for you. My personality would not be an issue. I would be okay with you. Really behind all this is respect, is a need to want to have some respect. And I just want to say that to the other gentleman, we're not, he's free to come on to other shows. What he has to say is important. You know, even if we disagree with what he says.
Right.
Even if we have a different view than what he says.
Right. So my thing is this. It's about, I will give you space to give me insights, but because this video has an outcome in expanding the understanding of what the true condition of the Black American community right now is, I cannot allow you to be another Umar Johnson and put out a rhetoric that is not a reality. Because the thing is, when we think about it, that's a delusion. It doesn't exist. If it does not exist for every single Black person, if it does not exist for every white person, then we cannot put that out as an innate truth. It doesn't exist for everybody. So is racism a thing? Of course. Is sexism a thing? Of course. People have their preferences. People will sometimes present with their biases, and their biases will cause them to discriminate unfairly against other people that don't fit their preferences, because that's what people do. But when we say that and we overgeneralize and say that this is a thing that's causing significant distress in our community, and we're not honest, then that becomes an issue, because we have to recognize what could be an issue in reality. So, you know, for me, this is about clarity. This is about, you know, allowing a conversation to be had amongst people. If you guys don't agree, I 100% respect your opinions to not agree. Type your books of opinions down here, and I'm 100% going to respond. Continue to share this. Share it with Umar. I'm going to try to do that myself, because I would love to have a conversation about him. But the reality is this: when things do not exist for a collective whole of people, then they're not a real thing. They're just not a thing. And so to condition people to think that they are, it's crazy. If we say that it's bad for Kevin Samuels to just tell us what his perceptions are, that all women should be a size 4, whatever he thinks, right? That's kind of crazy that we would say that Umar shouldn't be held to the same level of accountability. You know, I can't tell you that my perception of people wearing wigs, for example, since the young man commented on that earlier, I can't make you guys agree with me on people who wear wigs. I wear wigs, and that's my business.
European standard of beauty, sister. Says Umar Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the reality is this: wigs first started to be worn by African people, not you. That's what I understand. Like, he has no sense of who he is.
My wash and wear is not an indication of me being sexually something different.
Exactly.
I just don't want to deal with hair anymore.
Exactly.
Wash and wear.
And the reality is this: like, you know, a person's hair does not define who they are. I think India Ari did a great way of expressing that. I am not my hair.
Yeah, that's right.
I will decide to express myself with my hair, with my wigs, with my smiles, with my clothes. Those are all accessories, okay? All of those things are accessories to me.
In addition to.
So I don't need you to approve or disapprove. And I don't need to convince you that that's a good thing for Black women. I don't need to condition Black women to move into a place to where they feel like they need to have these things that I have, because I'm 100% okay with other Black women doing whatever it is that they want to do. Because guess what? I'm going to continue to do what I want to do. And whether you want to consider me to be a person that's, what did he say, Eurocentric? I am kind of.
We won't tell.
I'm gonna switch it up and say modern women. You're a modern woman.
No.
Oh, honey, we need to thing all the way in the 40s, 50s, to 20s. Right? The 1800s, 1700s. Like, what do you mean?
Where's Kevin Samuels when you need him?
Wigs.
No, we don't need him. No, that would be another 3 hours.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Look, I'm hearing Kevin Samuels goes around here. I told you I don't like that guy, but I ain't gonna lie, you know, he's pretty entertaining. But so
you should call into his show. I think that would be hilarious.
I can't.
Call into his smoke show.
No.
You know what? That would be interesting.
No, Dr. J.
I mean, she would be one of the few people equipped to handle him without getting emotional like the rest of the women.
Exactly.
No,
I agree.
no.
I agree.
It's a great way to put your name out there. You know, people gonna be watching.
No.
Who can best Kevin Samuels? You'd get a trophy for that. Like women would love you.
But that's not the goal. That would not be the goal. No.
I would be interested.
That's my goal.
I don't
you won't talk to a man.
Right. I don't fit the caller index thing. So I don't think that would be that would be big trolling.
If he does a male call-in show, I'm calling.
Your goal is not to go on and humiliate him, which is what would happen when you say he says something really out of this world and you correct him.
I wouldn't correct him because I would want to know.
He's not going to let you correct him.
No, but he would be corrected.
I like it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Maybe I will. Maybe
that's where it would go. It would be a correction. But facts is not straight. That's what you would tell him.
Especially my wig. I should go with my wig on too. So let me do that. What time the show is?
No, don't listen. Don't go there. There's no need for you to be. You don't have to be part of that.
I think he's live tomorrow. I don't think he's live tonight.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him.
I'm not gonna let money bags over here.
That interview, that call-in show could turn you into Dr. Ayana.
You know, look, I don't want to be her.
That's the most famous woman that I know that's a doctor. I want to say Dr. Phil because then you would be offended.
Oh yeah, we would. I would be offended.
Either way, both of them are people that are very scrutinized in our field. I have a profound respect for some of her approaches. I
do too.
Yeah, I just don't like some of the things that she does to open up trauma and then leaves people exposed. And I'm not really big on publicized trauma because it actually causes it causes a more serious injury than the initial trauma being there. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. But so my thing is this. I would be interested to know how he felt about my Eurocentric wigs.
That's okay. That's another show.
Yeah, I might take it off. I like to do that.
That would be another show.
Somehow I got stuck, y'all. But anyway, I do appreciate the commentary, and for the one that came on, was it Mad
Militant?
Yeah,
he has two channels, The Game Ain't Fair and Mad Militant. Same person.
Right. So I want you to know that I do not negate the validity of your personal views. If you feel like we are at some war, if you feel like Black people have been deconditioned to receive the world and their culture and our culture for what it actually is, if you feel like we are people that are far removed from the Black condition, if you feel whatever it is that you feel, I 100% encourage you to continue to walk in those insights and those feelings, thoughts, emotions, and things like that. I wish I had that thing that Trey be doing, but that would be rude. But
I got her, man. Next time she come on the show, I got her.
But I feel like I really feel like this has been a really good discussion, and you brought some very interesting parts of the conversation into question. I simply cannot buy into that idea because from a more expansive view, that's not a reality. And I understand a lot of Black people with their views because of your lived experiences and things like that, you see things differently. The way that we see life has a lot to do, our perceptions has a lot to do with our reality around us. So the way that we see the rest of the world has a huge thing to do with what our lived experiences are teaching us. If we don't come out of our own egocentric exposures, right? We don't learn about the rest of the world, though. We continue to live in fear. And the fear in the Black community is of success and what work looks like to get that level of success. That's the reality. And I hate to put it out there, but it is what it is. You know? So, and definitely I welcome you guys to comment and share your insight. Yeah. Let me know about this war that he talks about. We need to condition our kids to be ready for. You know,
but it's people have been talking about it for forever. That's why I said the war gonna come when Jesus come. Pick which one coming first. That's just some old rhetoric that just refuses to die. That they've been saying it since forever. It's gonna be a race war. It's gonna be a race war. It's gonna be a race war. It hadn't happened yet. Like, what's the holdup? Like, we have more guns than ever now, and the race war still hadn't broken out. If anything, as much as I don't like Black Lives Matter, that kind of showed us where America is. There was all types of people in the streets together, protesting for the same cause.
Exactly.
It may just be an analogy rather than a real war.
Right. And
it's a war within ourselves rather than people actually fighting.
Yeah, because it's a perceived thing. It's a perceptual thing. Mm-hmm. It's not about the reality. The reality is America is a country that has finally become less divided and more interested in engaging with one another, regardless of what they look like. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I've seen more white people. I've had more conversations with white people. I've hosted panels on Zoom in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. And that was a very emotional time for this entire nation. People of every color came together. And I mean, by the hundreds, by the thousands. Okay. Mm-hmm. I had to open up webinar space and everything. Separate ones in order to encompass what we needed for us to have these conversations. And to be honest with you, across the board from state to state, I saw more white people showing up, trying to be very genuine in supporting the Black community, but also trying to find space to grieve, because that was a loss for everybody. That was a wake-up call for everybody. And I think that the larger issue here is this. The police force there is made up of people that look all different colors. Mm-hmm. And this particular person, even though we want to say it was due to race, it was not. So the larger issue with the fact that George Floyd was murdered, because this man was he didn't only have a history of being that way with Black people. That's the thing that I hate about the news media. They didn't put out Derek's history of being that way with people who have substance use issues. That was the larger issue at hand. And that's what broke my heart, because we're putting out misinformation to incite the type of things that we've seen cause a further divide. Yep. And so Derek had a problem with people that use substances. Substance use is not limited to the Black community. It's everybody. He had a problem with using excessive force with them because he had inadequate training. He was a person that suffered inside of himself with his identity. And he murdered a person. And that murder affected everybody that had a chance to see it. It was a trauma for the whole world. You understand? And especially people that are mothers. For women, we had to watch a young man lose his life. And they're like, oh, he was in his 40s, so he could have. That's a baby. We have recently found that the human condition can sustain life for 110 to 115 years, folks. Where is he on that continuum? He's just started to live his life. He hasn't even gotten things in alignment yet. You understand? And police brutality caused the life of this man. And that's a real issue. In America, police officers kill white people, Black people, Mexican people, Asian people, all people at the same alarming rate when they are unarmed, and didn't do anything that would justify that level of violence when we look at police brutality cases, excessive force cases. That's a reality. Black community is under attack by the Black community, by a lack of values, by a lack of structure, by a lack of accountability, and we need to do better.
I know I'm about to go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, doctor.
And I think we certainly have another show to talk about racism in this country, because there is some validity that there are police officers who are using their power as a police, as a white man, to, lack of a better word, eradicate that person in front of them who happens to be a Black man.
I don't see a lot of racially targeted police brutality. I see police brutality as a police brutality issue. So just because an individual has racist undertones, or just because a person is racist, doesn't make them a bad police officer. You know, I mentioned, like, when one of my sons was arrested, the cop that arrested my son last summer, and this is in the same county police officer that murdered police office jurisdiction that murdered another Black boy that was the same age as my son when he was arrested. Okay. The same police force, Cobb County Police here in Atlanta, Georgia. So when my son was arrested, he was arrested by a racist officer. Everybody knows that she's racist. Everybody knows it. I didn't have a problem with her arresting my son. Neither did my son. My son didn't have one single complaint. She didn't use excessive force because he was Black. She didn't use racial undertones with him. She did her job. A person's personal preference in life has nothing to do with the way that they do their job, if they understand their biases before they come to the table, and they move and check those biases at the door before they start to do their job. So I have no problem against a person that is racist. I have a problem against people who are racist, and then as a result of them being racist, it affects their interactions with other people. I don't have a problem with police officers in general. I have a problem with police officers that inadequately police communities and inadequately target communities because they don't have the means or the know-how or the understanding or the education to gauge people that are in a mental health crisis or a substance abuse crisis, or people that are otherwise in a state of crisis that removes them from being in their right state of mind. I don't have a problem with the Black community until the Black community becomes people that kill other people in the Black community and refuse to take accountability for what they do, or Black people commit crimes inside of the Black community and refuse to take accountability and responsibility for what they do. It's about pragmatics, people. That is the issue. And if we take accountability for what we do, and we allow ourselves to be arrested when we are suspected of wrongdoing, even if we're unfairly targeted, when you get to court, you're going to have your day and you'll be able to refute the charges against you. And if you're truly innocent, nobody can prove that you're guilty.
I know I'm about to go to war with militant urban therapist, because he said Kwame Brown is right. I'm going directly over there when his countdown is done. Freaking Kwame Brown.
I don't understand your comment.
I don't know. I guess he felt like he's saying you cut him off. You didn't let him get his idea out. He said you assumed, you made bad assumptions about him before he could get his thought out, is what he's saying. I'm guessing.
I invited him to talk again after I interjected. I think having conversations sometimes includes people cutting people off amidst them making certain points to, clarify things. We're wrapping up, but so, I think that's just a part of having a conversation.
So there's a lesson learned, I hate to say there's a lesson learned for him today. Hopefully he understands what that is for him.
Right. But see, I just interrupted. I just cut Susanna off. See, perfect idea. It was me elaborating on the point that she was making. And I said ineffective communication, and she still finished the point. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Effective communication involves a loop where when you find that the message is being misconveyed or received by you in a way that you don't feel like maybe the person is intended to convey it, or if you feel like a message is going in a certain direction and you need clarification or to debunk it, you interrupt, debunk, or ask for clarification, and then you let them continue their point. It's 3 keys to effective communication. Sign up for a workshop. I'm here for it. So that's my show for today, you guys. Hopefully you guys are good to one another and you do the things that bring you happiness, and you go out there and do your part in the community on trying to make better choices and helping us to become more stable as we move into a place of accountability and acceptance and frugality as a Black community. That's all I got. You guys take care.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I'll rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking